Back to the ALGS Challenger Circuits here in North America. My name is Dia, and I have the unique privilege of being joined by the one and only Mellowcrit. So hello, Mellow. Say a good hello to the audience as well, because we're about to get into the nitty-gritty of CC number 3.
Yeah, CC number 3, we are past the halfway point now, onto the latter half of this Challenger circuit, and it's been a blast so far. And I think we're getting to that point, Dia, where a lot of the faces, a lot of the teams that we're going to see in game, a lot of the names are starting to look real familiar, and the top of the top just keeps showing up, right? So that's what I'm here for. I'm here to see who's back, who's hungrier than everyone else to try and take down one of these Challenger circuits. And of course, the stakes are different this year because the winner does get that unique qualification spot straight into that Split 2 Pro League qualifier, which is huge.
I like that you allude to that because we should really break down what the Challenger Circuits mean. Some people are tuning into this for the first time, just figuring out how to catch the up-and-coming talent to the ALGS. So, we've already had preseason qualifiers. These are not those, though they are very similar in the way that they run. Challenger Circuits run parallel to the ALGS. We're, like you said, into our third one, just over the halfway point. And they build up to the preseason qualifier for split number 2 of Pro League. So, over the course of these 4 Challenger Circuits, one team is going to walk away with that number 1 spot every week, and they're automatically seeded into the Pro League qualifiers, but they do have the opportunity to raise their standings by a little bit by continuing to compete even after they've won a Challenger Circuit. Everyone else, however, after we've decided those 4 winners, are just in order of points. So it's going to be the 4 winners from the Challenger Circuits, for sure, followed by the top 18 teams in terms of Challenger Circuit points that you can see on your screen right now. You accumulate those every time you show up to the finals or just around it, and that's where you can really make yourself consistent when it comes to seeding yourself into that end game tournament, that preseason qualifier, to make it to split number 2 of Pro League.
And one thing that's really wonderful about this is obviously these points are tied to the players, right? So all of these crazy roster mix-ups that we keep seeing, you're going to end up seeing a lot of names in a couple of different places, I think, especially as we get closer and closer to the end of that Challenger Circuit. So these points, every individual performance counts, but of course, we want to see these teams perform as well as possible and hopefully take down one of these tournaments so they don't have to worry about points. You know, they can just kind of fly right into that preseason qualifier. But like you said, I think you put it best. It counts. It counts that you keep coming back, that you keep grinding to get even better seating and even better positioning. But I definitely love to take a look at some of those teams that we might be checking out today because, again, a lot of familiar names. Dia, any favorites in here? Any teams that you're particularly looking out for? Anyone you're excited for? Any high expectations?
I mean, it isn't even a question. When people ask me who I'm excited for and Blackhand is in the lobby, you know I've got to call them out. But I've been harping on Team Diverge as well, who just managed to eke their way into the top half last week. I think this team has a lot more to give. They and Void are definitely my standouts from this group of 10.
Yeah, I'd absolutely have to agree. I love seeing Team Diverge in these lobbies. Again, I think they're one of the teams that I think is more interesting to watch in terms of how they navigate the map. And I think it's easy to be critical of teams when you don't see them, winning a lot of games. But truthfully, I do believe that team does have like the capacity, the macro knowledge. It's just that mid to late game transition, man. So many times they get to such great spots, but it takes that one fight. And often they're losing it against some of those really strong edge teams. GOW might come to mind as one of the earliest, I think our first Challenger Circuit winner. They were one of the teams that were just a menace on the edge, making it really difficult for any of the teams that were just trying to hold their place in zones. So Team Diverge, I couldn't agree more. I think that's an awesome team. But man, the expectations from Blackhand, it's so tough coming into this, I'm sure, but they know what they're doing. I can't wait to see them.
It is, and I'm glad that they have at least managed to make it consistent. They are one of 2 teams, it's Blackhand and Team Diverge, that are now the only squads to have competed in every single Challenger Circuit finals. So big things are expected from them. But you asked me it for Group 1. I'm going to ask this to you for Group 2. Are there any coming out of our second group from semifinals that you're looking forward to particularly, Mellow?
I mean, I definitely need to shout out Saturn. That's a MMW for those who tuned into the preseason qualifiers. I think that's a really explosive team, a lot of potential that hasn't quite hit its cap yet. And again, the dynamic of that team, I think the chemistry on that team, it definitely shows when they're playing well. And of course, another one of the teams that have been playing extremely well since they kind of broke into this year 3 scene, Stormtroopers. They've been around the scene, not just in these Challenger Circuits preseason qualifiers. They've been actually fighting it out in some of the top tournaments against some of the top teams in North America. So seeing them here once again, definitely really exciting. They have a lot to show for what they've done so far, but I think they can show a whole lot more.
They certainly can. I think that there's just a bunch of talent here, but it helps to contextualize not just in terms of how we've seen them in the finals before, but how they did in the semifinals leading up to this. I know we've got those results available, and this will really help contextualize where everyone is sat in terms of momentum going into today. Of the 73 points that Blackhand secured themselves coming into today, 43 of those points were kills. For Aim No Brain, right underneath them, it was 38 kills out of their 66 points. Both of these teams just putting up ridiculous numbers and consistently over the course of the games.
And I love that you bring up Aim No Brain because we have a lot of context for a lot of these teams, but Aim No Brain a little bit newer to us, right? We don't have the most information on this team. This is the opportunity for newcomers to just show up and take down big lobbies. So for them to perform against some names that we, of course, recognize, you've got to shout out Enigma Gaming, formerly the core of Roller Theory from Year 2 Split 1 Pro League. We've got Team Diverge, we've already talked about, Demigods, even Team Revenge that just scraped along to the next phase after the semifinals. So for Aim No Brain to be performing so incredibly well as, again, a relatively newer team to the comp scene, that's a huge testament to what they might be able to do if they continue to play in these lobbies.
I want to take a look at Enigma Gaming as well. You and I were talking about this squad a little bit before we got into today, and while there's actually some interesting narrative points that I want to bring up in a second, what stands out to me as a result of their semifinals performance is that they had way lower kills than any of the others in the top 5. Enigma Gaming got a lot of their points off of placement alone, and that's really impressive, but not as impressive when we consider their roots.
Yeah, I mean, you got to wonder with a name like Roller Theory, you expect them to be, I mean, just going crazy, fragging out, taking fights as much as they can. Obviously, the likes of G2 might come to mind when you think about just big roller-oriented squads. So definitely really interesting, and that could mean a lot, you know, in terms of how their game plan might have evolved or how their gameplay might have improved, because even though you might have a lot of firepower, if your macro isn't tight, if your game plan isn't clean enough, it doesn't matter how good your aim is or how quickly you're able to one-clip people in these lobbies. If you're not playing the map right, you're not going to get those kills, and you're certainly not going to get that placement. So they're already showing that maybe they've come a long way since that Year 2 performance, and they're here to hopefully show it and hopefully have a shot at taking down one of these Challenger Circuit finals.
Yeah, I mean, what Mel is alluding to is, you know, previously Enigma Gaming, who have Amaze and Wizzy, those two players were on Roller Theory from the Pro League, and so that experience has really transferred over, or at least it has in the semifinals. Other side of the lobby, though, it's important that we move on. Everybody's like, come on, we're getting to the games. We are getting to the games soon. On the top of the leaderboards, Deadass stand out with 67 points, 35 of those being kills, and they're a whole head above the rest of the lobby as well. They separated themselves by a pretty healthy margin from LTC Esports. LTC Esports, certainly a team I've got my eye on after their second place performance last week.
Yeah, they were so close to it, man. And they were even just really present in the preseason qualifiers as well. So to see them here once again, it's just a lot of those teams that I think we might be saying this a lot, but they have that high skill ceiling, right? We think that they can really break through and have huge performances. And all it takes is, you know, a couple of small improvements to be able to do big work in these lobbies. Another team that I definitely want to shout out here, and it's actually a little bit lower on the leaderboard, and that's going to be Infiltration, because that is a hodgepodge of characters, I guess, to put it one way. DivQ, who was of course on the former Blackhand roster from the preseason qualifiers, is joining We the People, and Taxi, who was here with Noko just last week. So a lot of big mix-ups. I am definitely mighty curious about what that dynamic is going to look like and how they're going to perform. Obviously, middle of the top 10 here isn't too shabby in a semifinal, but curious to know how that's going to transition into a Challenger Circuit finals.
Yeah, we've got a pretty content creator heavy day, and I was actually talking about this a little bit before. Where I mean, we don't have Wig competing. I wish we did. That's hey Wig, if you're watching, sign up for the next Challenger Circuit. But I mean, we have some really incredible content creators joining us, and it's kind of a treat to be able to see all of these names in one lobby competing against each other. Because at the very least, there's going to be internet drama because of it. And internet drama is my favorite kind of drama, Mello. I wanted to shout out another team real quickly, Ranch on Spaghetti, who are sitting at the bottom of the leaderboard right now, just barely making that cutoff into top 10. They had the same thing happen last week, barely making it into the finals, and in the finals they placed 20th. Ranch on Spaghetti was not hip in 2022 Challenger Circuit number 2. But maybe for Challenger Circuit number 3, they've taken these 2 weeks and really turned things around. I mean, I haven't tried Ranch on Spaghetti yet, but if they keep making finals, I'm going to have to give it a go eventually.
I'm gonna have to. We'll see. If I see them in a top 3, maybe I'll start to think about that a little bit more. But
they win,
yeah, you're right, dude. If they win, you're gonna catch me on Twitter
right
in a couple of days, just downing some ranch on some spaghetti. No, but seriously, there is a lot of talent here, and we could talk about pretty much all of these teams here and the road that it's taken them to get here, especially when they've been here multiple times. Again, you call that teams that have been in both Challenger Circuit. There's people that have been in the preseason qualifier finals that didn't quite make it in the first 2, or maybe had one Challenger Circuit final and didn't make it for the second one. I'm really excited to see Team Revenge in here. Obviously a little bit biased because I love watching Team Revenge. I love that team. I love seeing them in these lobbies. So just a lot of potential, a lot of teams here that can do a lot, but again, every time we get into these lobbies, it's kind of the wild west of how teams are going to perform, especially right off the rip when we wait out, where those contests are going to be, where those rings are going to pull, whether those teams are going to be able to effectively utilize their ring advantage if they're gifted it. Because we've seen it, right? Especially from some of the squads that have really high expectations. Just because you're gifted ring doesn't mean you're going to have a huge game. And in fact, oftentimes with your game plan, it can be even more difficult to do exactly that.
Yeah, this was something that, if anybody's been up and watching Apex for ages, that we experienced with the EMEA Challenger Circuit earlier today. There were a lot of rings that were pulling towards a squad whose first appearance it was in the Challenger Circuit Finals, Bobby Carr. And, shout out to Bobby Carr if you're watching. But they actually ended up having pretty good games because of that, but weren't fully able to take advantage. It was their first appearance in the Challenger Circuit Finals, but as you talked about, it is that really important skill set, because alternatively, when the ring was pulling away from them, we did see teams that had been in the Challenger Circuit Finals before, who had those rings going to them, really able to make very effective use of the ground that they were able to cover, both on Stormpoint and on World's Edge. Despite the fact that they're characteristically different maps in how they play out, that stays true. When it comes to your POI, you need to be able to win or at least place top 5.
Yeah, no, it is a huge deal when it's pulling your way. And I think now that the meta has finally moved, I think, a little bit away from the crazy aggression. Of course, Bangalore and Bloodhound have now made a bit of a resurgence, which is changing that up a little bit. But the Wattson is all over the place. People still love the early rotations with Valkyrie. And I think more teams are going back to that zone sort of play that people, I think, abandoned for a long while here. So we're seeing teams, especially like Team Void, who love to play that style, right? And when they're proficient with it and when they can counter some of the aggression of some of the newer teams that haven't been in the lobbies that often, it can be a massive boon for those teams. They can get big points. They can definitely get kills, but they have to be proactive as well. You can't just sit in zone. You can't just hang out and hope that the game goes your way. And so Void, a great example of a team that is able to do that when the zone pulls away. But of course, when it pulls away, it's a whole different story.
It is. It really is. I've actually been watching Stormtroopers recently. They qualified out of Group 2 in 3rd place, 54 points, 27 of those from kills. And it's some of the highest kills they've had in really any lobby. Stormtroopers amazed me on the very first time that they showed up in the Challenger Circuit. It was Challenger Circuit number 1, and they were this incredibly placement-oriented, really solid team. You'd get to the end zone, you wouldn't see them the whole game, but they'd be right there. They'd be playing Newcastle out in the middle of nowhere and just vibing. And ever since then, Stormtroopers have taken a little bit of a step back. They haven't really been getting those top 3 placements that we got used to, and it's really hurt them in the scores. Coming into this week with a top 3 finish in the semifinals might just be the sign that we are getting a new team, one that not only knows how to play zone, but that is able to do so while putting up big kill numbers.
Speaking of Newcastle, I think we're seeing 2 Newcastles in the Stormpoint lobby, one of them being on that that team that we're going to see Taxi on. So, yeah, definitely curious to see. I think I really appreciate what's happening to Newcastle in these metas because, well, I've had some strong opinions about Newcastle in the past, all right? But I do believe that a lot of the power of that character actually comes about when you're able to use that aggression properly, because the angles that you can create with that character are so you can basically just set up artificial cover to angle out teams, which is pretty disgusting, especially on some of the end games here where angling out some of the last couple of teams to get your end game spot can mean life or death for your team and can mean a win or, you know, as low as a top 10 placement right below the top 5. So that character, when it's utilized correctly, I think, again, could you replace it with some other characters? Maybe, but the teams that can utilize it well, and Stormtrooper is definitely being one of them, you can get so much value.
Mello, I live for the day that I hear you give a compliment to a Newcastle team that isn't with the asterisk of also I hate Newcastle. One day I believe that we'll get there, and I'm not sure when it'll be, but I look forward to that future.
Maybe
one day, maybe.
Maybe
did get
Ranch
really
Spaghetti one day, so you never know. You know?
That's true. I did get really excited when we were loading into this lobby, though. We also have a Mirage in the lobby, which is not something that I had expected to see, but that I am excited about. Somebody is definitely taking the first game as maybe a little bit of experimentation time, and you know what? There will be plenty of time for that. We've got Zone 1 already. We know we're going pretty far to the south. Whether this is fish farms or not, still not really determined, as it can go anywhere between fish farms, launch pad, even shipfall and antenna. But those are the POIs that we'll be keeping our eyes on that I'm expecting squads to start funneling into, especially because fish farms and launch pad already have beacon. Saturn, for their part, playing pretty conservative over by wall. They're not, it seems, really looking to take a fight early, which makes sense. When you do land over by a wall, you've normally got the benefit of the crafter. You can obviously drop down, get a little bit more loot, and it seems like we're going pretty slow for the opening game.
Yeah, and actually wall is an interesting POI because you can kind of have it both ways. If you know you need to rotate fast, it kind of enables that, right? You can get there pretty early. Your rotates don't crash a whole lot with some of the other POIs that are up to your north. So you can kind of schmoove, and in fact, they're already kind of moving on out of here just a little bit, probably still finishing up the looting. Of course, you see they're far in the north, Wizard Coin actually dealing with the Prowlers. But yeah, Saturn will start to make their moves, and meanwhile, over towards what you were calling out to be the southeast side of the map, already quite a few teams that are starting to find their way here, starting to poke out. And yeah, there we see it. Taxi, DivQ, and We the People already hauled up in a building, waiting out to see if any poor victims will walk their way and turn into some KP, or they're just going to hold tight for the end game.
I'm a little bit worried. We got a lot of content creators in fish farms already, and somehow I don't imagine that their idea of creating content today is going to be sitting in a building for 20 minutes straight. So somebody's going to die. It's just a matter of who loses their patience first. Well, we do have other teams rotating in, however. It's time for folks to join up over by Launchpad, maybe interrupted on rotation. It's Team Revenge that pull out the Valkyrie ult, moving themselves perhaps even further into fish farms, where it seems a lot of teams are predicting this ring goes.
And I think something interesting, I love that you bring up the Valkyrie, because Valkyrie is not on Team Infiltration. They're actually not running it. They've got Bloodhound, Bang, and the Newcastle. So they're just booking it wherever they're going, either walking or maybe picking up one of these tridents to make their rotations happen. I think it's starting to become increasingly more common, as I think teams are starting to realize if you can get some of those other characters to late game without a Valkyrie, that character slot can be so powerful. You can slot so many things in there. I mean, if you had a Catalyst in the end game, which we've been seeing a little bit of increase in popularity, that can make a massive difference. We saw a couple of teams in EMEA use it to great effect. Team Aurora, of course, might ring a bell, but yeah, it's interesting to see that more teams are starting to opt away from it.
It certainly is. I characterize Valkyrie in a very similar way to how I characterize Horizon, and that is that they They're quite good. Their slots can be mixed up, but it's that these two characters have the ability to win you a fight on their own, or, in Valkyrie's case, to save you from a fight on her own. And there are two different sides of the same coin when it comes to both getting aggressive and playing a little bit more conservatively when you are backed into a corner. The things that allow these teams to be able to risk it all and be a little bit more consistent when they do.
Love to see it. Here we see Deadass. That is definitely Deadass far away from his zone, but not even the furthest in this direction. We actually see what was formerly called Team Valkyrie, now Certified Beamers, very deep outside, as well as a couple of the teams up north like Wizard Coin and Co. And of course the team that we've called out a little bit so far, Inner Nerd Gaming. Right now, the fighting is already beginning, Dia. They were not going to wait around for this endgame to kick things off, and that's actually going to be Team Revenge taking a fight.
See them walking down in the kill feed. Team Intel are going to watch this one from the sky. Their rotation in should take them right around that IMC armory, but falling a bit short, they're going to slap themselves right outside of Fish Farms. It's not a terrible place to be, still decent mid-game influence, and especially the ability from Team Intel to take down squads that are trying to rotate in late. With 18 teams left, there's still plenty that need to make their way in, but this place doesn't have a whole lot of cover, and you'll notice that Team Intel aren't running anything that'll give them a lot more safety if they do have to move in late. Things like the Newcastle, things like that Gibraltar. And so they're going to make their move early on, push into a building, maybe even take a fight.
Yeah, this is actually where we saw...
What?
I'm actually not entirely sure. Is that just a solo there? Clankbot going down, just left to the... left to die by his team for some reason, but Team Intel just gets to waltz into this building. Not exactly what I was expecting from that walk-up.
Also, why was he at 20 health? Like, he literally ate a bullet and just died. Dredge on Spaghetti lose a player early, and it wasn't the look that I was thinking they would have moving into their second appearance in the finals, but you know, they've got plenty of time to recover. This Rez going off behind Team Intel, also a little sussy, I'm not gonna lie. They've got shots on it for now and plenty of ammunition to do so. It is a war of attrition that really breaks out in Fish Farms, though. You guys can already tell there are a lot of angles, a lot of windows poking in every which way, and this Loba is going to help Team Intel a lot when it comes to outlasting the squads around them.
And of course, they've got that Loba to pair it. That generator that got left there, man, they're just really having a good day right now, at least with this first game. Couple of boons that are going to help them out to hold out. We've got the Loba to continue to soak up resources as teams walk in and inevitably die to either the ring or the opponents. They're going to keep them out of it. So for the time being, they're sitting pretty. Blackhand very early up on this rotate. I'm not sure if they're still dropping mill, but if so, a really fast rotate, which I think has been considered a little bit uncharacteristic if you were watching Blackhand during the preseason qualifiers, where they love to play that edge and take fights, but now they've sort of shifted, and I think they have something to prove specifically on Stormpoint, because they've really had a hard time picking up the points on this map. They're able to do it pretty dang well on World's Edge, but if they can find a little bit more success on this map, you could see them fly up the leaderboard even more so than they've done in the past.
I think a large part of the way that Blackhand are playing right now has to be credited to Kodigami as well, because we've seen them pick him up again this week, and it's a Blackhand roster that has often been in flux. We saw Safe Griffin in for a little while, and now Kodigami's back, and Cody actually brings a lot of experience to the roster when it comes to making these rotations, say early, when you're going into Fish Farm. So I really like that they've grabbed him for this Challenger circuit, since it should make them a little bit more of a macro-oriented team, and like you're talking about, maybe shore up some of those weaknesses. Inner Nerd Gaming, though, our Mirage team, by the way, how about Audi picking this up? And when you see who's doing it, it doesn't surprise you nearly as much. Audi has always favored the Mirage, and I'm glad that we've got Inner Nerd Gaming in the lobby to give us a taste of that.
If you would have told me this when you were guaranteed to see 19 Seers in the lobby, I'll give them a little bit more credit for it. Here, I mean, it's, as you said, Audi doing Audi things. So out here deep in the edge, they're not going to sit on this crafter. In fact, they're actually just going to start to make their rotation with the Valkyrie. And I think right in front of them, we saw the squad that we talked about in the pregame. Saturn, formerly MMW, also kind of holding out around this general area and actually rotated in front of them. So trying to set up out here over towards what might end up being a far, far east play, maybe even as far out towards that Prowler camp that we're going to see.
I don't hate this.
It's kind of nice. Kind of nice.
I can't
if they can survive
right now. Wait, who else sits here? I was enjoying this because I went, you know what? You get spiders, plenty of resources. Nobody expects this rotation. For some reason, somebody else is already looking at Internerd Gaming. The fact that they're alive right now after running through all of that space is a miracle. But Dame hasn't joined them yet, and Internerd are still very split up. Dame actually eating a little bit more damage, and probably that's just going to be them giving up their Valkyrie, because I don't see anybody making it back all the way there. Bit of a split call from the squad, who didn't commit all together, and honestly, we're in a bit of a rough spot anyways, but we don't have time to talk about that, because over in Gale Station, we've got a fight. Team Diverge holding up the top right now, and being sieged on as Yu-Gi-Oh! Picks up a very swift knock.
Yeah, very quick knock here. It looks like it might have been a re-engage from a previous fight because they were not quite full health. You see Adium here trying to take a little bit of height, and we're actually going to pop back over to the team that was bullying that squad that made that rotation that we sort of liked, but now maybe aren't loving so much, and it's actually Demigods, and look at how much space Demigods is controlling. This is actually really interesting because they can actually hold this north side, force teams into really bad rotates, and they actually get a little bit of space to walk in towards their south, assuming, of course, that they're allowed to walk in. But yeah, taking a whole bunch of space seems to be the name of the game for them.
Yeah, Pride trying to do just that as they move themselves into the ring, knowing that there's still some space behind them. You can tank zone number 2 for a little while. Pride, another squad you should absolutely have your eyes on. We watched Fluke play on Contested last year, and a dam comes from Shadamus Prime, one of those really strong Challenger Circuit teams that we were talking about in the first week. So they've absolutely, on an individual level, made their names ones that are hard to ignore. Pride, for the moment, do seem to be bullied a little bit in Gale Station, unable to commit, and ultimately getting one knocked as well. It might be the go button real soon.
Yeah, it definitely could be, but I don't think the knock came from the team that's right up towards the north. It might have come from further out towards Fish Farm, so they're going to hold on for now. No go button quite yet, for Orioles and crew. They're just going to hold out for now, but this fight might be an inevitability, or just hit the Valk button. Little ring 3 Valk action. Are they going to find some space? Notoriously, Fish Farm does have a lot of those holes in the ground, and you might have seen a couple of pings there, but it looks like they're going to go actually even further out towards the southeast side, and it seems like they decided, in fact, to take one of those openings up in the ground and stay safe for just a little bit longer.
And over here, we've got another fight. Launchpad still the place to be, it seems, as MMW find themselves a few kills. Internerd get taken out at their hands, so that's MMW grabbing themselves a few points, albeit delayed ones, since we previously saw Internerd fly all the way over their heads. While meanwhile, we've got some stabilization going on in Fish Farms, and Stormtroopers have been chewed up by Enigma.
Yeah, now that's two teams that we were sort of, again, kind of high expectations going into this Challenger Circuit final. Stormtroopers and Team Diverge have been knocked out. And in the meantime, Enigma Gaming is holding out here pretty dang deep in zone, has the Crypto to work with, as well as that Watson to, again, continue that war of attrition.
Saturn that's taking the fight against Certified Beamers right now, and Saturn that may very well be losing it with MJ down. That's a big part of the firepower from Saturn just eliminated, and it's already what looks to be a 3 versus 1 right now. Certified Beamers do need to make their way into zone though, and it is literally an uphill battle to take them there, one that they cannot spend their time on. Black Hand get taken out. That's at the hands of LTC in the meanwhile. So while we've got a team literally fighting for their Game 1 lives here, some of our favorites still continue to be taken down.
And LTC, I think, characteristically tends to do that, right? You kind of talk about them at the beginning, you forget about them, and then suddenly they take one fight, and they're in one of the best spots on the map. So that might be what's going to get them to transition into the late game. Right now, Certified Beamer is trying to do exactly that, but falling apart and falling to the zone. That's going to be Certified Beamers eliminated here by TKC.
certified beamed. That's what's up. TKC
Yep.
take no prisoners. And up on this high ground, they don't even have to fully disengage from it to pick up yet another kill. Turns charge rifling down the last member of Saturn and fully eliminating Wizard Coin. This is such a good position on a theoretical level in this lobby, but we're taking a look now at the teams that might have better ones a little bit later on. Teams like Intel that have already laid themselves into these actual fish farms have a really good position when it comes to outlasting as the ring continues to pull further south.
And we mentioned this team earlier. They have a little bit of that staying power, especially with that Loba. When you can get that Loba into late game, you can definitely soak up a lot of resources that you need there. You already see shield swaps coming out. But other teams have definitely very different plans from that. They're not going for the war of attrition. They are trying to take out squads in their way. And we see exactly that here over towards the southeast.
It's Deadass via the Crypt, and for the moment, it's Deadass that's outside, making sure that they lay down the appropriate amount of pressures. Newcastle wall on the inside, making things a little bit more difficult to push. Frags would be super useful right now, but it doesn't look like they have any. Instead, they're just eating a bunch of damage from long range.
And interestingly enough, Deadass doesn't necessarily have to take this fight immediately. In fact, they can kind of hold up underneath this building as long as, again, they don't get, a bunch of LOS coming from over towards the central part of Fish Farm. So they're kind of vibing for now, and they have the Bangalore as well, which again breaks up that LOS even more. So it looks like they're going to hang out for a bit. They're going to coexist, but looking at where the ring pulls, Dia, they're not going to be able to coexist past ring 4. Once this thing starts closing, it's going to be fight or flight for one of these teams.
It's just not going to be that much actual space to play, and well, I believe some part of this building is in. Nobody wants to be there, especially if you're playing underneath. I mean, you will just get shot at from miles and miles away. Here, though, things do get a little bit more close range. We talked about these fish farms already, and I'm so glad that teams have actually recognized the power in prioritizing these spots early on. While it does look a little bit ridiculous to have everyone running around right next to each other and completely ignoring the others for a little while, it still is ridiculously effective.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if you can clear some of the teams on your edge, just like Team Revenge just got cleared out as well. That was an unfortunate walk-up, I think. They get taken out by demigods as they try and force their way in. And, yeah, right now teams are trying to hold tight. Looking at where this ring is pulling, Dia, those fish farms are about to be no man's land for all of those squads. They all have to move, and this is going to be a brutal walk-up for so many of these squads.
What is going on with the Crypt right now? I'm trying to decipher their mystical firing into the air. I'm sure they're frustrated with the situation right now, but as it appears, it is just a little bit of perhaps a game of chicken, right? Say, hey, no, we're fighting someone else. No, we're fighting someone else. Come on in, but nobody's coming in.
Yeah, just kind of shooting where bullets might make the most noise. Infiltration here was here very early, Dia, and here we see them now finding themselves on the edge. They are going to be the team that is going to have to sort of initiate this walk-up, and they don't have a Valkyrie to hit go on, so the only way is on foot. They have those shields from the Newcastle to work with. They might have an ultimate on deck to maybe push on up, but look at how far they are, and they've got plenty of squads, including LTC Esports, that are going to be looking to keep them out, that are going to be looking at them as just juicy pieces of KP at this point. They have nowhere left to walk.
They're like, you don't even appreciate me for my personality. I'm just KP to you.
Yeah, you're just
that's what a lot of these squads have got to be feeling like. Right up against the wall. Deadass, though, have rotated their way in, and this is a risky maneuver. They've still got a full squad behind them, and out they come from this building. Not even being focused are Deadass. Able to sit out here and just farm up. Picking up a few kills. Nice scan to follow that up. Make sure you've got full information. Infiltration got in the meantime, and the Crypt just stutter, sputter, and die around the edge of the ring. Team Intel doing much the same as they jump out and are taken down. Ranch on Spaghetti eliminated as well. And just like that, Mellow, like magic, we're into the top 7.
And I love this play from Deadass. Honestly, the way that they walk into that corner, they know their back is clear, so all they have to do is hold LOS on that team, eventually kill them as they walk up. And now the Bangalore Ultimates are going to start to come down all over the place. I think that's 2 at once. Void is eliminated. LTC doesn't even survive the wrath of the squads that are right behind them, even after taking out Team Infiltration. And this is actually looking really great for Deadass. And though they don't know it, Turns is the last member standing on that squad of TKC over towards the south, so they even have a spot that they could potentially walk up on. But Pride is sitting in the middle with a Kraber right now.
That is a X factor that you do not want to accidentally push up on. As soon as you even hear the first shot of a Kraber in the lobby, you've got to play a lot more conservatively and in a position where you can, I want to say, recover if you do accidentally get knocked. Goat's been doing a really, really good job in the meanwhile, just covering his teammates with this smoke he's been doing all game. And it's honestly what's kept Deadass in such a good position. It may be the very thing that saves them as they start pushing up.
And it was looking pretty symmetrical there for a second. It looked like Deadass was going to sort of share these angles with Demigods, but they finally end up walking up. Demigods is trying to do the damage, make sure that they don't get landed on or have to deal with some wild Valkyrie. And it looks like that Valkyrie is going straight on top of Big Polo and crew. That's Enigma Gaming that's going to take that fight.
What on earth is going on here? How does Pride get landed on and then almost wiped? That is not something that you see every day, and the confidence play pays off as Deadass take down a squad without even blinking. They really live up to their name here.
They hit him with a little redirect there. I don't exactly know how that happened because I could have sworn Enigma was the team that was getting landed on, but now Enigma is seemingly in a great position to now punish both of the squads that are left, though they are the meat in the sandwich right now, Dia. One squad to the north and one to their south. Both are going to walk up. They have fences set up to stave them off just a moment longer, but triple red shields for Demigods right now as they walk into this end game.
Yeah, this is such a good look for the Demigods with control of this low ground as well. They've just got to play defensively. Still got a Wattson to use as well. It's time to start setting up some fences. Demigods do give up a little bit of height as Jimothy has to go for the shield swap. Doesn't quite get it in time, but they're going to continue to hold down this spot. There go the fences. Out comes the generator, but they've got a squad above them now. Demigods have given up the height, and with 3 teams left, there isn't that much more space left to give away.
And it looks like Wazizi actually finding a really nice spray here and continues to deal damage, but they can't really swing. They don't really have the tools and certainly not the armors to make a play here. And of course, one more squad to their right, or right above them, excuse me. So who's it gonna be, Dia? It looks like Enigma is the team that's gonna get swung on, actually dealing a lot of damage off of the hip. And from 1 second to the next, Deadass takes it down from 3 down to 1.
This was an incredible performance from our squad, Deadass, who made it to the Challenger Circuit Finals for the very first time. We know they've got incredibly storied players, and all of them even playing right now, but the thing is, I didn't expect them to gel this quickly. I'd seen Aureolez play on Aegon. I know that Goat used to play on Slepton, but what on earth is happening in game number 1 where they are not only saying, oh, well, okay, we're trying something new, but they're also saying, and our new thing, it's better than whatever thing you've got going on. So much better that we're just going to literally land on you.
Yeah, I mean, that was crazy. I really thought that was going somewhere in the center, but they just hit him with the Uno reverse and actually came straight back on them. And I think you said it right as it happened. We went from 3 standing to just 1 in the matter of, you know, the blink of an eye. That just is insane. The DPS that they had to output to make that happen after landing with a Valve. Keep in mind, there's like a whole, you know, half second of lag before you can even utilize your weapons. And they managed to just turn that around. They managed to steal height away and end up just stealing away the game at the end there. That was insane. That was off of clearing their back from one squad that was above them in a building over towards the west.
And it was off of a two-man play as well. Just didn't get to play that final zone with 3 people because their landing did cost them that singular knock. We'll take a look back at the game and sort of see how this evolved, but I want you guys to keep your eyes out because the very thing that lets Deadass win the game is Demigods giving up that height as those 2 squads are forced to walk into each other. We did have a lot of teams eliminated on their way in, though, and I will say, Mello, for every asterisk that you give Newcastle, I give those same asterisks to Fish Farm's end zones. I think they're really, really difficult to play, and they're unlike any other zone on Stormpoint.
Yeah, I mean, truly, because it's one of those that they really go from like 0 to 100, right? You have like 4 or 5 teams that are safe up in those Fish Farm modules right in the center, and then Ring pulls either a hard south or over to the building out towards the east, and suddenly no one has any space to play. Weirdly enough, that must have been one of the pulls that had the most opportunity for cover, but the way that it ended up playing out, so many teams fell on their way trying to walk up, and ultimately Deadass punished a lot of those squads and managed to take the win in the end as well.
A very well-deserved victory and a 20-point start for them, but Demigods mirror it by picking up enough KP that they're equivalent in points. So we've got a tie for number 1 after our first game of the day, and 20 points as well, not that difficult to overcome when we look down the leaderboard. We do have a lot of squads that end with 0 after our first game of the day, and plenty more that are struggling to pick up bits of KP here and there. So a rough start for sure, but when we're on Stormpoint and it's the first game of the day in the finals, you got to give everyone the chance to warm up. I'm glad that Deadass and Demigods took care of business and got themselves the points they needed. But now it's time for the test. Game number 2 and beyond. Can they hold on to it, or will they fall like so many others? We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll find out. Everyone to the ALGS Challenger Circuit number 2. We've already had 1 game down, and I want to take a look back at the scores just to make sure that we're all on the same page heading into game number 2, because the fact that we did get a convincing win by Deadass didn't stop a surprising tie. We very rarely see ties like this, even at the Challenger Circuit level.
Yeah, it is really impressive. That just goes to show how proactive Demigods was with their positioning. We got to give credit to Deadass, obviously, for fighting their way into that end game and fighting their way into a win. But the fact that Demigods was able to tie them up with a full 3 points placement short of Deadass means that they were doing work with that spot that they picked over towards the southeast. And I think that's a really big point for a lot of the squads that are actually willing to play zone. In fact, for a Challenger Circuit, I think there's a lot of teams that like to play that way. Blackhand a little bit different with their gameplay choice. Of course, we saw them there pretty early. Team Revenge likes to rotate early. Void likes to rotate early. So a lot of squads that are able to take an early residence, they aren't always the winners. And if they can't make use of that positioning like Demigods is able to do, they're very quickly going to start to fall behind.
And I want to call out Demigods for their performance even earlier in this past week over at Series E on their pro night. They ended up participating and placed right under G2 and MPS in third. This was above CLG. This was above Team Mike and Ike, who are currently playing under Team Saturn. And honestly, to be able to perform in a lobby like that, where you've got heavy fraggers like G2 and MPS, and still place above everyone else, is an incredible feat, especially when we consider that these guys are playing in Challenger Circuit. They're not playing against pro teams on the regular. This is like a one-off stop for them, and yet still they're able to perform really consistently. They bring that same energy in here. They frag out in game number 1, and they set themselves up for success in the larger story, because you and I both talked about it. Fish Farms is really chaotic. Storm Point as a whole is really hard to get a handle on, but if you can perform well on Storm Point, you should be able to bring it home on World's Edge.
Yeah, and I think one of the difficulties with Stormpoint is even though you might have a really strong game plan, if you aren't able to execute it, if you aren't able to dynamically adjust that game plan just a little bit, if you get pushed by a team or if a team ends up angling you in a way that you weren't prepared for, those game plans can fall apart so quickly on Stormpoint. The room for error ends up shrinking a lot quicker, I think, than it does on World's Edge, so that where you have a couple more pockets to play, you have a couple more opportunities to make up for those mistakes in Stormpoint. And especially, like you said, in Fish Farms, those opportunities are far and few between when you make a big, egregious mistake. So a lot of these squads, they're able to make those adjustments for sure. It's just whether they're able to do it in a lobby like this. That's what it really comes down to.
I mean, let's just compare this very quickly. From the southeast side of the map to the southeast side of the map, we're playing Fish Farms and we're playing Lava City. If I Valkyrie late into Lava City and somebody's already in building, I'll just take a different floor of that building.
Yep.
There are like 3, 4 of them there with 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. That's 12 floors each? Yeah, 12 floors in total in Lava City, just among 4 buildings. You Valkyrie late into Fish Farms and your building is taken. You die now. There's nothing. There's no other place to be. That's the problem. You can land the exact same place every time to varied results, and it is a very scary thing. But as we've sort of dwelt on it enough, I do think it's worth saying we're probably going somewhere else. Statistically likely that Next Ring pulls us elsewhere, and it'll give us a very different flavor of game, right? And that's one of the things that you can really appreciate about Stormpoint is the varied ways in which it'll play out. A wall zone, for example, very, very different from when it pulls over into Fish Farms. And I'm really looking forward to seeing if we get anything that lands over by Stormcatcher, because playing hills, playing verticality, to me, Mello, is what Stormpoint is all about.
Oh, absolutely. I think Fish Farms is one of those unique end games, right, where the tempo of that end game is so strange because you technically have a lot of space to play early, right? All of those Fish Farm pods, you can stick a team in there and they'll be fine. But as soon as the ring pulls, one way or another, we saw that there were so many end zone possibilities over towards the south, towards the southeast. As soon as it pulls away, man, those teams are just going to be trampling over each other, just sprinting for probably the worst spot in the end game anyway. So the dynamic of that POI, especially for those end games, is definitely very difficult to navigate. And honestly, like you said, I think the hill play, the horizontal factor that you see on a lot of the other POI endings for Stormpoint, definitely a little bit more interesting, and definitely gives these players more opportunity to outplay or even just have a scrap of a chance when they're not there incredibly early.
One more shot at it as we're popping into game number 2. We've got Legend Select in front of you, and yes, if you're just tuning in, that is a mirage. Internerd Gaming are the only ones to pull it out, and given that they got 0 points in the first game, I'm crossing my fingers for them. See if they can bamboozle some folks as we move into game number 2 of Stormpoint.
And not to toot my horn, but we do see one less Newcastle in the lobby. I'm just saying. There was two, and now there is only one. Yeah, I'm just you know, just throwing it out there.
Probably
because
Newcastle's bad, right?
That's horrible. No, but I mean, honestly, we talked about the way that Infiltration maybe could have made better use of that Newcastle in that endgame. They don't have that Valkyrie. They had a building early, so the recipes for success, I think, on paper were technically there. But I think the fact that they weren't proactive enough to shift somewhere slightly different to have a better position if that ring pulled away from them, which ultimately it did, they were kind of just part of the stampede over towards those fish farm pods. So maybe they just recognize that, hey, they don't need it. They want to play something a little bit different. Is the power there? I think absolutely. I think it could have been used slightly more effectively, but ultimately they're just going to go for maybe something that they might be more comfortable on here.
I do want to take a question that you posed earlier and answer it for our viewers. Blackhand are still landing over by Mill. That's something that we wanted to follow up on going into this game. And fortunately enough for them, they'll actually have a pretty easy rotate in. One of the problems that we could foresee is they don't have a beacon right now. However, there is one in Millage, just down to the southeast of Mill. Will they be able to get the scan, knowing this is going over into swamps?
You're not part of Bean Gang. You're not about it. Oh
no, I'm not Bean Gang. What is Bean? What it is? Ugh. Millage sounds way cooler.
You know what? I'll give you that one. I will join your Millage cult at the very least for this challenger circuit. But yeah, they do have a little bit of opportunity there for that rotational beacon, and that's actually really impressive. Again, I'm glad that you called that out actually, because I'd kind of forgotten I posed that question. But the fact that they were in fish farms so early from Mills means that their rotation strategy must be pretty crispy for rotating really, really early, which, again, characteristically, if you watched Blackhand before, you might be fans of their edge team fighting here. They're just showing a completely different flavor, potentially because of the new players that they've slotted in. You mentioned Kodagami. That might be making a big difference to how they like to navigate that game. So definitely props to them for getting there, but ultimately not the best start for them. We'll see if they can do something a little bit better in game 2.
Oh, maybe a knock. It is a knock. Styx is down. That is big for LTC Esports, who have just managed to pick up a knock onto Team Revenge. Almost certainly Styx is going to be left for dead. I can't imagine they're rezzing on the other side of this door, but LTC, they're going to charge it either way, looking for this finish, and indeed, they will find one. Styx completely thirsted. Team Revenge down to 2.
And that's actually pretty insane because LTC rotated into Team Revenge's PO. I believe they're landing Jurassic, so that means that LTC just had the right amount of loot to say, hey, we're going to take this fight now. And of course, it definitely doesn't hurt to have that 1x2 G7 scout on Dan Mantic. Made it look way too easy. Upgrading to a 3 doesn't hurt either. They're just finding everything they need right now, Dia.
Yeah, some really good stuff. They do still have a squad in front of them. AMV team to look out for, as they are the ones that I certainly make sure to keep note of, because I know that we've got a team called Void and a player called Void, and that always makes me just a little bit nervous. If they both make it to the end game together, things are going to get very confusing, folks.
Oh yeah, absolutely, especially when both of those teams are willing to rotate so deep into zones so freaking early. I think I see both of them, both the team and the player in there. There are a lot of squads that are starting to shift early, and I kind of like this. I like the dichotomy of teams willing to play that early game. I feel like for a while we just saw a bit of a lack of it. Everyone just wanted to take gunfights on the edge, but teams like the Crypt and, of course, teams like Void, teams like Team Revenge, they like to sit deep in zone and bully those rotations.
Got another fight going off, though, as Team Diverge have found their first knock. Sleepy Panda on his trademark Wraith has been the one to open things up, and Bird's got an excellent flank out here. Team Diverge do get that full thirst, as well as another Floop going down as well. They're on the verge of picking themselves up, picking themselves up a full squad wipe, but they're not going to get too aggressive just yet. They've still got plenty of time and are in ring, so no rush.
They're in ring and they're kitted. I mean, like 2 gold shields for their troubles, not too shabby whatsoever. They're going to start to make their way over a little bit. Ranch on Spaghetti, another team that has made some interesting split plays. I want to say that Klingpot death definitely left us scratching our heads a little bit. We'll see if their Valkyrie ultimate puts them in a slightly better position together this time around, and it looks like they've taken up residence in this rock, and I don't know if I caught that being I'm not sure if they're running Wadi on that team. Yeah, they are. So that spot definitely really interesting. You can set up a gen there, and you have plenty of angles to work with. So as long as there's enough other teams in the area, the probability of you getting pushed are actually pretty low for how open this looks.
Yeah, I'm of two minds about Wrench on Spaghetti's position, because I absolutely see the world where they don't get pushed, and I think it's akin to when we have people play places like the Harvester Hill right off to the western side. When you get there at the right time, it's an excellent position. When you get there too early, there are maybe a few too many sight lines, and Team Intel certainly have some right now. Oh my god! It looks like they're not even going to be looking elsewhere, because wherever they... I can't believe they just got a kill.
Yeah, Enigma just kind of caught running across this field, and there actually seems to be a fight in the center building. You see there a Seer ultimate, which is going to mean definitely at the very least some violence. And it's actually Team Revenge who picked up Styx, who got fully thirsted. It looks like they recovered their banner there with the crypto.
Oh, no.
Actually stuck them into the res beacon, and now he's gone again.
Oh no. Well, I mean, at least they can still get the banner. Maybe, right? That's that's the theory. Everyone's just farming Styx this game. It does feel bad. There's not a whole lot you can do when you fall slightly behind on a Wattson, and getting back into the game, especially in such a crowded scenario, is nearly impossible. Team Revenge even getting pushed now that people know that they are just a two-man squad. Lily gonna escape the roof temporarily, trying desperately to move into the river. 10 HP, and Team Revenge are gone.
Yeah, nice pincer play there. Ends up just dismantling that duo. So unfortunately, Team Revenge will be going out in 20th. Will be going out pretty early here. And it looked like they had a little ounce of hope there when they picked up Styx, but unfortunately, they won't be picking up any more placement points here as they go out very early. Infiltration now. Still, actually, not the team that swapped off of the Newcastle. I might have been wrong here, Dia. They're still holding it down, but they're starting to eat some of that pressure that can be characteristically difficult for Newcastle teams, and we the people down to a pixel of flesh health.
Gonna get out just around the corner. We the people, a very, very scary player when left, especially at those close ranges. But Infiltration struggling with closing that gap just a little bit. As in Jurassic, even the smoke provides only temporary cover for them. Infiltration are gonna hold out on this corner, and I don't mind the move for now, since they do have the zone that is going to be a little bit easier for them to just slip inside. The focus, though, does have to be on Stormtroopers, who we know are right next to them. Stormtroopers, characteristically, pretty rough movements. They haven't done the best job of being able to set themselves up in one place and then relocate it. It's that relocation that kills them. And so I like that Infiltration are setting themselves up as a barrier around the edge of zone.
And I actually love that we got to take a look at Blackhand, because they just flip-flopped their game plan completely. We saw them deep in fish farms right off of what might have been the start of Ring 2, if not a little bit later. But here, they're just vibing outside the edge. They're catching this Ring 3 beacon over at Checkpoint and still have a long ways to walk. So maybe those flowcharts are a little bit more sophisticated than I think I definitely expected, Dia, where each one of these endings, they have a pretty rigid game plan that they seem to be sticking to for the time being.
I like that, and I mean, it just goes with the character of the zone. It's sometimes you'll see a wide open zone and you'll decide to pick up snipers, and sometimes in Blackhand's case, you'll see a zone like Fish Farms and go, we have to get there early because of the reasons that we were talking about. In this specific case, when you've got all this movement into where the zone looks like it's pulling, down by the river, and you have the opportunity to go through Command Center, to walk through Cascade Falls, to pick up cursory kills, because you're guaranteed some rocks to play around later on, Blackhand's 3v3 on edge potential may be just right for the picking, and it does look like that's what they're going for, is they are mirroring a squad even. Orioles and Goat just walking in right by Cascade right now. If they're not careful, dead ass, our winner from game one could be caught by surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually really like the way that they're navigating the map, because I think one of the big factors when it comes to Stormpoint is holding the high ground, not just towards those end games, but throughout your rotations. When you have a little bit of that high ground to angle out teams, to have a little bit more information, a little bit better sight lines, you can make more informed decisions about how you're going to walk into these zones. And here we see that they're actually going to walk up a little bit further south. So I think you might be right, Dia. I think we might be looking at a potential fight with our Game 1 winners here. But a team that definitely won't be fighting at least anytime soon is Pride, who's deep in zone. They've got a charge rifle, but they have a cracked Yu-Gi-Oh! And they're just turning tail right now for the time being.
Nice call to group up as well. You don't want to be holding 2 buildings, especially when weak. Pride instead are going to opt to hold just the top floor for now, and as the zone gets more crowded, it's going to become even easier to understand. Blackhand trying to take a fight of their own, have an ingenious Horizon Gravity Lift. We'll see if this gets spotted out, as right around the res beacon is where they're trying to fight. Somebody's already dropped down, but Yasuto's got an angle. Blackhand could very well be taking and winning their first fight of the game right now. Certified Beamers get taken out, and that is the first squad that falls as this ring begins to close.
And they fought an Infiltration, who we saw in a very tough spot right outside of Jurassic, seemingly turning around their luck a little bit and finding some KP for their troubles. Blackhand has now cleared the squad away from their rotate. They are now right below them, but they have gotten scanned. And I'm not sure that's from the same team. That might actually be Team Diverge, who's making their way up themselves. So, yeah, for the time being, it looks like this is paying off for Blackhand, but they very well might have to take this fight, and honestly you might want to. That's potentially KP that you're not going to find otherwise.
Inner Nerd Gaming are going to be going up against what I'll call our second place squad, despite the fact that they were tied. The Demigods sit right beneath them, and Inner Nerd are tanking the zone to be able to approach this with a numbers advantage. Demigods are going to be able to get their Seer back into the lobby, and without that extra information, they are sprinting it down the hill to make sure they avoid the fight that is otherwise coming for them. I like the move, but it does make me wonder whether Demigods are actually going to be able to hold on until later in the game, because without a Seer, it's really hard to play out these endgame fights.
And with the way this ring is pulling, you have to anticipate there's a squad Lagoon there. We see Turns, Kitchens, and Satiability, the team that might be playing spoiler to the rest of Demigod's game, but they're playing really quiet for now, which is definitely what you want to do. I'm not sure if TKC has the information there, and yeah, unfortunately for them, it does look like they've spotted them out and are starting to take pot shots their direction.
Good spot to hold for TKC as well. Still have a foot in the next zone. Valk ult over them. They just work. I'm not seeing a whole lot of shots landing. We've got other fights breaking out across the map. Vize finding a few knocks, and that means that Stormtroopers are getting involved. We saw them play a little bit more passively earlier, surviving somehow the push from Infiltration, but now they're really getting into it, and they're not the only ones. Blackhand are deep into a fight as Demigods get taken out on the other side of the map. It's Blackhand that now are in so much trouble. Yasuto is down, no more cover of smoke to hide underneath, and it's time for the Horizon ult to come out to play. Not a whole lot of damage gotten off of that. Arc Star instead is going to smash Kodagami and Voltic as they come back. Voltic even having to take to the skies. Cody escaping through the zone. Can Voltic join him in a ring that hurts so bad? It seems like Blackhand's only recourse is to take to it as Deadass roll up to clean up.
And they actually pushed Deadass. Blackhand did all the way up north, and Deadass comes around for the wrap to claim these 3 KP, though it's a very different 3 KP from what they were looking for on to Blackhand, and now this weakened squad is eating a lot of this early damage. Nice clip here from Nuts, and he just continues to deal it with the R301 to follow up. Orioles does end up going down, but right now on the front foot is Deadass, and they do finally managed to take down this squad. I think there's one member left that may have just snuck out for the time being.
I mean, if they did, not for long. Even Blackhand aren't going to make it up. They get cleaned by Saturn. And this ring really, really does hurt. We've already seen Deadass be now permanently missing a member just because of the inability to tank this anymore. And as things get tighter on the end game circle, it's going to get even more difficult to play. We've still got a massive traffic jam, though, forming, and it's not just outside of Jurassic, inside Jurassic as well. We've got squads on squads sandwiching in on each other with very little space to play.
I mean, there are so many squads crashing on this northern side, and Ranch on Spaghetti has been here for a hot minute. So now they get to reap the benefits of their early rotation. They managed to hold on. They were there at the right time, and now they just get to fire on these squads for free and pick up KP as these squads really just running out of space and quickly running out of time in this game, potentially.
Yeah, in the face of Syracuse, Bangalore smoke is just a formality. It's an aesthetic seasoning to your corpses. Stormtroopers get taken down, and by some miracle, this team's still alive, but Ranch on Spaghetti have just shepherded them into yet another squad. There is no true escape. There is only the avoidance of Ranch on Spaghetti. Infiltration get taken down in Jurassic. Well, Ranch on Spaghetti start to get a little handsy over here. Climbing up the wall, they're going to spot that it is a full 3-person squad that they'd be fighting up against, retreating right back down and prioritizing instead their rotation into zone, something that feels a little bad when we consider they didn't actually get any KP off of that.
Yeah, that is actually really unfortunate, and now they have to weigh their options, because if they spend too much time here, all of the playable spots that are going to be down to their south end zone are going to quickly run out, and that is a brutal ring pull deal, which means that they might have to start thinking about having to force this fight now. If they didn't pick up those kills, there's going to be so little space, and I think we have 6 squads up here on the northern side, and realistically, I mean, they might have to fight over maybe 2 playable spots right now. LTC already comfortably over towards that Jurassic entrance, so they're going to be holding on for quite a while. And TKC, who was holding that Lagoon building, also has this eastern side control. So, I mean, realistically, all these squads are going to be walking into an absolute pincer.
What if Deadass just wiped the lobby, though? Because they did just jump onto Team Diverge and took out Anya Suda, who otherwise should have been pretty comfortable, especially with the Wraith Portal right next to him. It is incredible that Deadass were able to pick up a KP as a 2-person squad. They've even created another now to be able to maybe even pick up even more. Where did Wizzy go? Why is his health bar gone? What is going on with Deadass?
Oh, and there's actually another Valcoat that's going to end up right behind him. So while TKC seemed really comfortable for the time being, now there's another team that has joined the fray and might have LOS on them, but they're safe for now. And that does mean that for the time being, Deadass doesn't end up pushing on them, and they are still just a duo and a dream as the circle closes.
Got Sleepy Pandas, I believe the last member of Team Diverge, going to be focused now. Unfortunately, not a whole lot of places to go. Team Diverge get taken down. AMB going to join them. AM No Brain are out-angled, outgunned, maybe even outmanned. Pride go down first, though, as we've got 7 squads left at this point in the game. Not all of them full squads either, but Enigma Gaming go down, moving us to 6, and we might even be getting a few more eliminations soon, as the pace of the lobby, especially towards this northern side of the ring, continues to increase.
And this is absolutely ridiculous, because Deadass is actually now forcing teams to fight each other. They're not even getting engaged on at this point. They are just causing enough trouble to draw attention away from them and to shove teams into other squads to hopefully get them to fight. Ranch on Spaghetti now definitely in zone, but kind of in no man's land here, Dia. There is quite a few spots that you can play for a little bit, but as soon as a team decides to commit to looking at your squad, they could fall very quickly, though. I mean, for the time being, they're just kind of chilling right now. No one's looking their way while Deadass continues to pressure.
We got a taste of this, though, with our third-person camera. LTC, they're pretty convincingly in zone. They've got a great position up on the hill by Jurassic. No one's fighting them. They've got Watson fences for days, and they're able to sit back here and put pressure onto Ranch on Spaghetti, who otherwise are having to dip and dance at the whim of literally everyone else in this lobby. We know for a fact they've got a nightmare squad right next to them as well. Though they may be only 2, Deadass have been farming so far, and Ranch on Spaghetti cannot afford to underestimate them.
And right now there is a rat on Team Intel as well, who's going to walk into the full LTC stack here in a moment. So here we go, round 5 closing. This is the one Dia that's going to make or break the rest of Deadass game, and that realistically might just break the squads up on the north completely. How is this duo continuing to pressure so much? They've now shoved this team away, and that might be what runs into Ranch on Spaghetti. Deadass continues to survive.
Oh my lord, and they've still got plenty of resources as well. The ammunition between these two is more than enough to take them into the end game. Aim No Brainer gone, and we've had a first place finish, followed by a top 4 performance as a duo already by Deadass. It could go that much further. It could get that much crazier, ladies and gentlemen, as Deadass now have turned their focus onto the squad that you mentioned, Ranch on Spaghetti, who are in the pits of suffering.
Yeah, absolutely, but they can't really be looked at, and finally, Deadass loses another. The Crypto Drone is not going to get quite the best EMP, in fact, no EMP at all, and now Nuts is getting swung, but he's not going down without a fight. Dia survives her way longer than he had any business doing, but Goggle actually ends up going as a result, and the third party's here.
No way to get out of this either. That single kill that Deadass got is more than enough to pick up the rest. TKC go for this third party. They're cleaning up Ranch on Spaghetti. And with 3 squads left, it's time for LTC to walk up as well. Whittled down to 2. LTC have the high ground. They've got angles, but they don't have the numbers right now. Just being taken down bit by bit. There's a lot of damage coming out of Danmantic, who has to pop the shield bat, who's still getting pushed on behind this knockdown shield. LTC could lose control of it all. This could be taken away. Bunch comes out. McLovin gets away, hits the reload, plays the knockdown, and still throws out these nades for about 1 hit of damage. TKC take no prisoners. Instead, they take game number 2.
And an optimal third party there, actually baiting LTC into an overcommit just a touch. They should have had the angles to play Dia. I was giving them all of the credit all throughout in that spot that they were holding so early when they killed Team Revenge, but ultimately it gets kind of swept away from them in kind of the craziest way, and really off the back of an insane solo performance in Deadass.
I mean, we talk about competitive experience, and you're right. With that situation, LTC should have been the team to walk away with this. But we have so many should-haves when we look back at this game. I mean, think of all of the insane plays that we saw take place with, I think most notably, Deadass being the ones to find so many kills on the way in, but also Ranch on Spaghetti going from a really unfortunate game 1 to a top 4 position in game number 2.
Yeah, definitely really impressive. And we talked about that spot that they picked, right, where it can be kind of a make or break spot. If you're there too early, there's not enough other teams there to cover your sight lines and prevent teams from overcommitting. You're there too late, and you're one of those teams that's crashing their rotation with all the other squads over on the northern side of that ring pole. So they get tons of value. But adding to the should-haves, this is actually a shouldn't have, and Deadass shouldn't have gotten 7 KP as a duo. Realistically, they shouldn't have gotten 7 or 8 KP as a duo. They shouldn't have made top 3, and yet they remain throughout the whole freaking game, just causing absolute terror. Top 4, excuse me, just causing absolute terror on the entire lobby all the way.
It's a beautiful thing when we get to call out 2 players that against all odds are going off. When it's 3, even better, but 2 will do for me. And honestly, getting to see that and then the chaotic endgame finish that we got with plenty of excitement as ultimately the win going to TKC was a really big boon for them. It's net them up near the top of the leaderboards. With this game, 23 points should be enough to put them in the conversation for top 5, if not top 3 overall after 2 games. But LTC are not that far behind.
And it seems to be sort of the story that Challenger Circuit 3 is telling, because TKC might have won the game, but they were only 1 point ahead. LTC, they might not have won it. They might have arguably, I don't want to call it throwing, but they really had a great opportunity to win that game. And even though they didn't, they still managed to soak up 13 kills on the way to their 2nd place finish. So definitely, you can only knock them so much when they're doing that to the lobby.
Yeah, this is certainly a game of tight margins near the top. With TKC able to do that and LTC so close to them with Deadass as a 2-man, I'll say it again, still able to grab themselves a 3rd place finish. on game number 2, placing above Ranch on Spaghetti. I mean, things are looking like they're going to be content full, which I think is appropriate for the amount of content creators that we actually have in Challenger Circuit number 3. This was game number 2, though, and as we look towards game number 3, I want to take a minute and look at the overall leaderboards to see where everyone is sat. LTC, surprisingly, on top.
Yeah, I mean, they're looking really strong. They had a massive game number 2. They got a lot of value out of their position. They almost win the game. And TKC right below them, but deadass within 2-point striking distance. And again, they really just had no right to be there. Their game really should have come to a conclusion a lot earlier, in my opinion. But it just goes to show, man, sometimes when you play out of your mind, when you know how to work these lobbies, when you know how to work the edge of the map and pressure teams correctly, you can open up so much space for yourself, regardless of if you're a trio or a duo. So great job by them.
I mean, this is already turning into one heck of a day, because we've got LTC, who were, I think, arguably by a lot of people, robbed of their win last week. Now showing up near the top of the leaderboard, but right underneath them, TKC and Deadass, with their first appearance in the Challenger Circuit, may be able to clinch their spot in the Pro League qualifiers. To see how these stories keep getting told, we're going to take a short break, but then come back with game number Back to the Challenger Circuit, folks, where myself, Dia, and Mellowcrit have brought you 2 games already, and Mellow, as you and I both well know, they have been games unlike any others, as Deadass have had some wild performances, but LTC, most importantly, have taken the lead. Let's take a look at those leaderboards once again to really cement what's going on here, and remind everybody that last week, what happened to LTC, Mellow?
Oh, man. Definitely not this. We'll put it that way. They're doing fantastic right now, and it's a team that's been grinding, man. I really respect it. Every time I see them in these lobbies, I can really appreciate the amount of hard work that's probably going into this success, but we don't want to call it too early because, of course, we've got TKC who's playing great and Deadass that is hot on their heels, and we're just down 2 maps. In fact, we're about to roll into our final map of Stormpoint, but for the time being, I think all these squads in the top 5 have to be patting themselves on the back, but also gearing up for what is going to be an absolute battle for this Challenger Circuit win.
It is, because as much as Stormpoint has proven really entertaining so far and very full of kills in their multitude of ways, that is about to change. It is arguably the last time that you can get away with the same playstyles that you do on Stormpoint when World's Edge becomes such a different beast to conquer. Now, when we're looking at the diverse ways that these teams have already approached their first 2 completely separate games on Stormpoint, I gotta say, Mello, I'm not sure what to expect when we jump into our 3rd and final. We've already seen Black Hand really have 2 very different approaches to the game, and yet still not come into those top 5. So what is it that teams like Black Hand and those around them, Stormtroopers, Inner Nerd, The Crypt, Void, what are they missing? What is the piece that's not clicking, and can they put it together in time?
I'm not going to lie, and I actually said this the first map. I think that some of the game plans here are really good. I always give credit to Team Diverge. I always give credit to the squads that I know have like game plans that love to think about the game. However, they can be as little as 30 seconds late, and I think it makes a colossal difference. So for some of these squads that are ending up finding themselves crashing on their rotation when they really should be walking in for free or walking with less trouble, that I think that's breaking apart so many of these game plans. Like, for example, Team Revenge. Team Revenge, I think on paper, could have potentially had the best spot on that map that LTC ended up taking, and I think they knew that. So to lose sticks early meant that they no longer had the priority on that spot. They could no longer hold out and hopefully hold into that late game. So again, just the little mistakes, even with a really good game plan, those mistakes will come back to bite you in a big way.
It is these small missteps that spell the end of a squad, and we're already seeing what could be the beginning of an end for someone. Inner Nerd Gaming have landed themselves right next to Saturn, and it's our first early contest of the day. Developing over by the wall. Inner Nerd Gaming previously electing to take some of the lower loot, take their time, avoid the fight. Now we're looking a little bit more antsy, a little bit more ready, and with that kind of damage opening things up, I understand why Dame is feeling so confident.
Yeah, and Dame really needed to do that there because that's a purple shield on the opposing squad, and they have high ground, so they're already starting to take over this building. Saturn perfectly healthy right now, and they're just laying on the pressure. They have so much presence on this team right now, and this building, Dia, is not the funnest to hold because of the way those windows are set up. You can kind of just crawl outside, or you just swing wide open that lower door and absolutely demolish Adi. Yazik's going down shortly after. MJ is just demolishing this team right now.
I was going to say, take a look at the kill feed and see who's getting these knocks. MJ is relentless and is one of the largest parts of Saturn's success over the course of their runs in Series E and now in Challenger Circuit. When MJ is having a good game, Saturn are having a good game. And make no mistake, this is not a one trick pony sort of squad. They've got other avenues, but it helps a lot when your Horizon, who is arguably among the most mechanically gifted Horizons in the game, is having a good time.
And I'd love to know what composition they were playing the previous games or where they were dropping, because they might have just tuned this thing up a little bit. They said, hey, We didn't really find the points that we needed. Maybe they identified Internerd Gaming as a problem. We really can't know. We're not in the comms there, but maybe that call that they made here to take the full-on contest and wipe that team is going to give them a big opportunity in this game. But, of course, at least in the meantime, 3 KP, I wouldn't be crying over it.
No, I mean, you've got the opportunity to make this your game, to put yourself on the map with one last showing on Storm Point. The Crypt, meanwhile, have got a pretty nice building in Barometer, and the fact that we're seeing so many people pile up in Barometer and now have Stormtroopers' perspective, knowing that they've got a beacon as well, tells us a lot about where this zone is going to be pulling. It's looking like it's going all the way to the south, almost right on top of LTC Esports, and it makes me wonder, how have LTC Esports gotten themselves into the center of the ring again?
Oh my goodness, they are just playing South Nut, and that's actually a great spot here from the way it seems to be pulling. So as long as they can hold this building, which again, notoriously, this is another type of building that's not the most difficult to push here. And yeah, it looks like pushing buildings is just going to be the name of the game for so many of these squads. We see Miles already going down. We see a bunch of squads that are starting to swing their way in as well. Crozjo involved as well, and yeah, it looks like they just kind of went in and tried to come out, just not getting away with it this time around, though they lose Crozjo.
This should be a possible recovery at the very least. Smoke on the ground, banner pickup, come on through the zip line. This could work for Stormtroopers, but even with the res ship coming in above them, it's hard to avoid third parties that could also be committing onto them. Stormtroopers thinking about going for it. Will they actually pull this off? You sure would like your third, because if Stormtroopers don't get this banner, they're not playing the rest of this game.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough. And Crozjo, actually the newest addition to the Stormtrooper squad, a controller fragger, which you definitely don't want to be losing when you have quite a few more 3v3 situations that you might have to deal with later in the game. We're down just on round 1 right now with 2 minutes closing, and we've already lost 3. So this particular game has been a little bit more bloody than our previous ones. We'll have to see which teams manage to make their way forward. Blackhand trying to do exactly that by getting another pretty early rotation here. They're a little bit closer than they were on the fish farm zone, but it looks like they're vying for position early, which I think is a pretty strong play with the way the ring is pulling.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by that timing point that you brought up too. I mean, this is a little in the middle of the way that they played the last couple of games.
Right.
The first one, very fast rotation. Second one, took their time. And the third one, like I said, somewhere in the middle. Not really sure what this team is going for here. Barometer still can be very difficult to play, but we know there's a 2-man on the top floor. A little bit of company beneath them. And I think the most important thing about this zone, the most important thing, Mello, no one really knows where it's going. Blackhand, though, they know they're committing to a fight up on this high ground. Talked about Stormtroopers earlier. They've now been pushed out of their house, and I wonder where they've gone.
Yeah, and it actually could very well end right in front of where Blackhand is looking, and I think they were very nervous though that their spot might have gotten taken, because it looked like they very purposefully approached this walk-up, and they were scanning it with that Zero passive, of course, to make sure that the walk-up was clear. And so now they're the ones that have taken this height, and this height, Dia, it can be an absolute just beast if you're walking in late, because the LOS that you can attain from this spot is pretty dang ridiculous. So Blackhand going to try their best to make use of that spot while they have it.
And it should not go undervalued that Blackhand walked their way into it either. That is one of the most powerful positions in the lobby. Stormtroopers lost their third and then gave it up to Blackhand without a fight. And I'm not saying they should have fought, because God knows they probably would have lost against a 3-person squad, but it feels really bad not to be able to hang on to it for all it's worth. Blackhand, though, still at least are being challenged as they dropped down onto the low ground for a reset. And I don't see their opponents anywhere, but Cody's got a read.
And I think that was actually Team Diverge. They were holding down below. We saw that when Stormtroopers was playing earlier, so they just dropped down. They took the fight, and it looks like they got it done pretty dang swiftly. But now that they've given up the high ground, another team immediately trying to replace it. Jet going down very low, but the fight is on.
We have seen this exact same move from Blackhand earlier. They go up the zip line, but they know they're just this little bit too late. Blackhand likely going to have to play this out from the low ground now, as Team Intel is not a squad that you want to challenge for a position like this. They can and will fight you, and they can and will shoot you out of the sky. A nice quick landing followed up after Flinsar just takes somebody straight to the mouth with that longbow.
Yeah, and you have to wonder, again, it's a game of very small mistakes. Maybe after you finish that fight, you immediately send the healthiest member up to anchor up on that zipline because you know how popular this spot is. That's what I would have liked to see from Blackhand, but now they've given up this space, and where they otherwise might have had a really great opportunity to continue to soak up KP into this late game, again, depending on where this ring decides to go. Now they're playing on the low ground and just hoping that it goes their way, maybe pulling a little bit outside of this building so that they can get into the late game, but they won't be finding any KP for free anymore from this low ground.
And we've touched on the value of the Loba before. The fact that Intel have high ground, have arguably until this late game a theoretical god spot and a Loba to keep themselves topped up on resources to loot death boxes that you peasants on the low ground are going to create makes things very, very difficult, because Intel, when they do come downstairs, are going to be terrifying, are going to be looted up, are going to have the bats, the meds, the ammo to deal with you. And it's a terrifying promise that Intel has just made to the rest of the lobby. Ranch on Spaghetti, they on the low ground happen to escape under supervision, of course, from Intel, as everyone is going to be doing, but are going to play around the outside here, a position that I will say can actually be really nice should the zone continue to pull south.
And here's the problem that they're going to run into, though, is that they have two squads looking at them, not one, but they have that ring 3 information, so they're committing to a play already. Infiltration trying to hold on to this fight that they seem to have taken and are potentially on the back foot of. Little shield swap here from We The People, trying to hold on for dear life. There is the ultimate from We The People, but it is not going to be enough. That is not enough damage and too much pressure from Demigods, and Infiltration falls early.
We called it out earlier, but We The People, terrifying at close range, couldn't quite get there this time around. And with the read from Cape on this Seer, it was an all-too-easy finish, sliding on through that door that they already had control of. Demigods, who have already performed so well today, now pick up 3 KP, pick up their friend to get their full 3-man back into the lobby, and should be able to continue with likely a really well-placing game number 3. They're already in the top 15. They're collecting placement points. They've got KP, as we already illustrated. They've got the res. I honestly couldn't name a whole lot of other things that I'd like Demigods to have.
Yeah, they've got space. They've got positioning. They have a beacon, Dia, right next to them should they desire it, if they don't have that beacon scan already. But we'll see how they end up playing out once they pick up their third. Deadass, though, looking to get aggressive, unsurprisingly here. A nice little finish onto Intel with an 86 pop from Nuts.
Bro, what is happening? Why is it that when we see Deadass, they're just killing people? It's like, earlier today, I was looking at, who was it? They were just shooting the wall somewhere. I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get this. And
I'm trying to remember.
It's okay, it's okay. And I was like, what on earth is happening here? This isn't a ranked game. Deadass make this look like a ranked game. They are just running at people right now, and it is somehow working, as their timing is immaculate.
Yeah, and I mean, so many teams have cycled through the same spot. We've actually seen them do a very similar play to what Intel did before, except they got it even more free. This time, Deadass gets to pick up KP as they take this spot. And once again, we have another team, a brand new team that's King of the Hill. And when you just gave that up to Deadass, I mean, there might be few teams that are scarier in this position, Dia.
It was Crypt that was shooting the wall earlier, by the way. I've consulted my notes, I've found it, and now I don't have to speak of it again. They know exactly what's going on.
Love to hear it, love to hear it. Yeah, and I mean, right now, you were talking about how many tools Jimothy, Cape, and the rest of that squad have right now, and the boons they've been gifted. Talking about boons, Deadass, again, just just has a great position, and they already have 2 red shields. I mean,
they actually might even have a black market in here. That's how ridiculous Deadass's position is. We'll see when and if they ever go inside, but Flesh on the ground, no knock, but Nutnuts is not playing. Blackhand get taken out. Ranch on Spaghetti. Looking back, we already saw them make an interesting, actually, move around this side. I really liked the way that Ranch on Spaghetti have navigated themselves into this building.
Yeah, and there we actually see this next ring pull, and in fact, it is pulling right outside of that building, just like we'd mentioned a little bit earlier, which means that Blackhand, if they can hold on to that low ground, they might have a pretty decent spot to play. Again, they missed out on some of that KP that's being picked up by the likes of Ranch on Spaghetti and, of course, Deadass, so they're going to get to play the end game potentially. Ranch on Spaghetti, though, this early move is potentially going to get them a lot of value, which I really appreciate. Again, zone teams need to be proactive. When you're in the zone early, you need to make moves. You need to be getting damage. They have a charge rifle to do it. They're going to try and evo up as quickly as possible and have as many reds as they can get before that end game. And, of course, looking for KP as they do it.
I'll tell you who's making moves right now. We haven't gotten the chance to look at them on screen too much, but the Crypt have shown up as wiping 2 separate squads this game, and may very well be having a pop-off in our 3rd game on Stormpoint. They've been pretty quiet for the rest of the day, but now may just be getting their time in the sun. Deadass take a fight of their own. I'm not sure how close range this is, although it's looking pretty stacked, and there goes the scan really showing us exactly how close this is. Oriel's gonna swing as Goat opens things up, but we don't have the double wide going on just yet, so Deadass can't feel confident in pushing this in its entirety. With this window out angling they've got going on, Oriel's gonna be able to pop the bat down here. Not Nuts jumping right in, taking out Crojo, but getting PK'd in the face. He gets the assistance from Goat as Sosei goes down, and it's Stormtroopers that they are uprooting. Stormtroopers that have gotten aggressive onto Deadass, and who now have started a secondary push. We've got another squad looking for Deadass right now.
They try to reclaim the hill and are just decimated for it. Crojo once again dead in the water, or rather dead in the loot box, and now Pride has walked in as well. This is just the hottest spot on Stormpoint right now. Everyone wants a piece of this pie, because thinking about where the zone is pulling, I mean, there might not be a better spot on this map to play out this endgame, so Pride wants a piece, of course. We had Stormtroopers that wanted to reclaim the spot that they gave up earlier. In fact, the only team that I'm not seeing here that should probably be involved is Blackhand, but they've died as well.
Pride just aren't getting a lot of damage, though. The drone just back up, no EMP, no black hole, no nothing. Pride are out of cooldowns, and they may be out of time. They get triple pushed, and again, Nuts is the one that finds that opening knock. Pride are just down to 1 member, and Deadass, again, don't even do them the courtesy of making this look difficult. Yu-Gi-Oh! Gets out with a white shield swap, but another team is coming up to Barometer!
Bro, they just... You know, the teams start coming and they don't stop coming, and they just keep getting turned into KP by Deadass. Right now we see 4 and 3 on Not Nuts, and the push is coming out once again. This time the team does have a C-roll to try and make something of this, but Deadass holding strong, and this is... I feel like the longer these fights go, the better Deadass plays.
Honestly, I think it's just keeping them in the zone. Deadass have done so well thus far, and backing off to just the right amount. There is likely Horizon on the other side of this, though, so they can't play with the same style as they did before. Instead, they've got a 2-man flank going on as Orioles goes 1v3, just gets knocked, but trades it back as well. Orioles full thirsted, no res beacon on the high ground, but Deadass are going to fight this out anyway. They've still got Nuts, they've still got Goat, they've still got firepower as another falls, and Deadass are going to be wiping another squad. There's the knock, 1-4-1. Goat actually still alive, and Nuts the same as he slides on down. Squads drop like flies, and there is nothing you can do to Deadass.
And at the cost of one of their team members, Dia, they still hold this hill. They still hold this tower throughout all of it. And they have picked up kill after kill after kill. They can't keep getting away with this.
Saturn get taken down, and Void are the ones that were cleaning up Deadass's leftovers on this low ground. When anyone drops down, Void are there to clean them up. It's actually net them 3 KP so far, as they've been able to slowly but surely accumulate loot and points throughout this game. They've got red shields, plenty of time, a Titan on top of them, and no worries. Because with 7 teams left, someone else is going to go for this. That was a mobile res to bring Orioles back.
You can't make this stuff. I get it. I get it why they named their team this. Because you say, hey, we were a duo and we got 7 kills. Deadass?
Deadass.
Yo, we were dead. We killed 4 squads. We lost one, but we Moby resed them, and now we're going to win the game. Oh, Deadass? There's no way. They just keep making magic happen, Dia, and I don't know if it's just a straight up 3v3 power of the squad. I don't know if they just are deep in the heads of their opponents constantly. Maybe they're just in a flow state that no one can stop. They have maintained this god height. 7 squads left and ring 5 about to close.
And they make the impossible look simple. And that's what's really impressive about the way the Deadass squad has already performed in not just our third, but our first and second games of the day as well. They've still got height even. As this zone continues to pull, I dare say, Mello, that even the following zone may not pull them out of the ultimate high ground that they currently have going for them. And it's them that are continuing to claim kills as the zone closes in, that are really putting the screws to teams that are trying to rotate in last minute. Crypt maybe attempting to do the same. Kraber in hand are going to take a look out their doors and clean up a little bit. I believe they got 1 KP off of that. But TKC go down. Team Revenge out as well. And LTC still very well could be in this. Let me find out real quick. Daniel, yeah, LTC still in this. Maybe I spoke too soon. Maybe a caster cursed him because they've lost 1 now. Goodbye, Dan.
Oh, that is unfortunate. And I really might have just mentally caster cursed Revenge because I was going to say, look at the space they're holding. They're kind of controlling a lot of space here. And right as I was about to say, LTC Esports drops down. They pick up that fight. They hold this position, but at the cost of Dan Mantic, excuse me. So now 2 members left, and controller looting here on McLovin, so getting a little bit of damage, but now they hold this edge. And again, just it can't be overstated how ridiculous it is that Deadass still has this height. And Ranch on Spaghetti, props to them because they picked the spot early, and that was a great call for where the zone was gonna end up pulling. So now it's really up to execution for this squad. They could potentially take down this game win, and that would be huge for their leaderboard position.
Yeah, this will honestly change everything, whether LTC, whether Deadass come out on top, or, I mean, for really, teams like Crypt, even this. Because despite the fact they may not be in the argument for the top 3, I mean, what is going on right now? They're just being shot at from above, and nobody's able to do anything.
See, the problem is, Dia, Newcastle is a really good character, so they put down the wall, and they still die to the height. It's nuts. Anyway, Salt posting aside, Void, actually the team here that has held down the low ground, they are coexisting with Deadass, so I think this is going to be a very interesting drop-down fight depending on how much space Void can take up, but in the meanwhile, they're looking for kills, Dia.
I like that Void are getting aggressive now. They've taken the scraps for so long that just these small calculated points of aggression mean a lot to them. LTC going down is really problematic for them, though, as LTC, we're looking for number 1. We're hoping to hold on to that. And now that they've dropped out at 5th and Deadass are still in the game, they could very well lose control of the whole series.
And I believe Deadass is going to have to drop down before Void has to take up their positioning or give up their positioning on this ledge. And they actually have a little bit of extra cover with this box as well. So depending on what Deadass decides to do here, this could be make or break for both Void and for Ranch on Spaghetti. Just a couple seconds left. You have 40 seconds, and the drop down is right in front of Void.
Oh my, it's even on the same level. They are taking no prisoners. Deadass go for this. And though they've lost 1, still could be working for him. Deadass do go down, out to the bottom floor, commit Void, but it's just 1 member, and they lose out as well. Both squads now in a 1v1 at the end, and Ranch on Spaghetti do it! From qualifying just barely for last week, from qualifying just barely for this week, Ranch on Spaghetti, they win our last game on Stormpoint.
That is so sick, and I love seeing this team rewarded for their early game strategy. They picked that building pretty dang early. They knew they could hold it for a long time. They didn't get pushed. They had the defenses from the other squads that could look out as teams walked in, and all it took, again, was just that last moment. And it turned out that Deadass was looking for kills right below them onto Void, which means that they just got kind of a lot of free angles in that end game. They capitalize, they take down that final Newcastle and end up taking it down in game number 3. Our last game of Stormpoint. And what did we say, top 3 for us to put Ranch on Spaghetti? I'm getting a little nervous now.
I know, me too. I'm actually quite scared. I'm like texting my partner, do we have any ranch in the house? Can you make spaghetti right now? What's the emergency situation? And what are these last place contingencies for these teams as well, as we've got to be asking ourselves. I'm scrambling to come up with any ranch and spaghetti, but they've got to be scrambling to come up with points, as 3 games on Stormpoint, as much as we've looked at those top performing squads, has been very unkind to those in the bottom 5. This is not one of your standard games where they're at least picking up 2-3 points over the course of 3 games. We got a lot of folks sitting at 0 right now.
Yeah, definitely a lot of people that are going to have a lot of ground to make up, and we know how punishing bad macro can be on World's Edge, and even if you get good rotations, sometimes finding those kills, because everything is a little bit more closed, there's a couple more angles to hide. It can be a lot more difficult to soak up KP from squads that are rotating late. So teams that are falling behind on Stormpoint, they're going to be really sort of having to rethink their strategy maybe a little bit to find a couple more kills and have any semblance of hope to try and take down the teams that are at the top right now.
Yeah, these squads have all been playing all weekend to get here, and now that you finally arrived, you can see KP, you can see the points that you need to qualify for the preseason quals, to make it potentially into Split 2 of the Pro League. You can literally watch those points slipping through some teams' fingers, and the panic button has got to be now. This is your last opportunity in 2022 to get yourself any further towards Pro League, and you want to close out the year on a win. From last game, the Crypt, in a fascinating way, have actually been the ones to really take this game. We talked about it in the mid-game, and we never really saw them. But Crypt were the ones that I said were wiping up squad after squad, we're getting going. And to see them do that to the point that they take the whole game in points, 20 to the 18 of our first place squad, that's incredible.
That's actually insane. I think you might have mentioned them once, and it was discussing their random shooting in the corner of a building in game number 1. So to see them just kind of sneakily walk up this, maybe we were watching the kill feed enough, because they were just fragging and farming apparently. 20 points, actually outscoring Ranch on Spaghetti, and we gave a lot of attention to Deadass as well, but Deadass really only got 1 more kill than the Crypt that entire time, which is honestly crazy shocking, because I have it in my notes here already. So this is unbelievable. Stormtroopers gave it to Blackhand, gave it to Intel, gave it to Deadass. Everyone just kind of cycled there, and 2 teams died trying to stay there just to try and survive. That's ridiculous. So I don't know where Crypt was soaking up these kills, but they did a great job.
They really did. I liked their rotation in early and being able to hold out the building. Just, I think, the one that mirrored, actually, Ranch on Spaghetti, with a Kraber no less, allowed them to farm up so many squads that were coming from Jurassic, coming from the Southern Nut that LTC were in earlier, and it was a really active position that I think is what a lot of people imagine sitting at the top of Barometer would be like. It was a great look from the Crypt to close out their performance on Stormpoint. Now, to see if they can give us more of that as we head on over to World's Edge in just a few minutes. Welcome back to North America's Challenger Circuit number 3, where we've already had our first 3 games on Stormpoint. Now we'll be transitioning on over to World's Edge. Mello, before we popped into that game, you and I posed the question, what do these teams need to do to make it click on Stormpoint? And I think a lot of them answered that question internally. I want to bring up the overall leaderboards one more time to take a look at our standings, because most notably, Crypt were the ones that brought themselves up from having 2 pretty mid games to now being in the argument for top 5, sitting at 6th right now, 1 point behind Demigods.
Yeah, and I think it's critical that they soak up, or that they stack up, scrap together points, because right at the end, again, that transition from Stormpoint to World's Edge, it can be so punishing for so many teams. So it's really awesome to see the Crypt hop up here. Demigods, they had the limelight on them, I think, for a lot of the early part of the Stormpoint matches. They're actually just sitting a point above them. So for them to have gotten that much value out of that game, I think is a massive testament to what they might be able to do over the course of the latter half of this Challenger Circuit Finals.
And yeah, no matter what, say, for example, Ranjon Spaghetti do.
Oh, God.
No matter what they do, whether they get top 3, whether we're eating Ranjon Spaghetti by the end of the night or not, it's already a mile of improvement for them. Because think about the story of Ranjon Spaghetti. They showed up for the first time last week, again, barely qualifying, and they finished at 20th. To put it in no uncertain terms, Ranjon Spaghetti had the worst day you could possibly have in the finals. And now to be showing up and having us going, maybe they're top 3 material, is one hell of a turnaround to make in 2 weeks. The squads that grind for it, squads that really want this, they get it. And Ranjon Spaghetti are absolutely demonstrating that in Challenger Circuit number 3. We're jumping into game number 4, however. You've already got Legend Select in front of you. Some things are changing, some things are not. Still a lot of Bangalore Bloodhound, but one thing's for sure. World's Edge going to play very, very differently.
And TKC, you see there the little exclamation mark. Shout out to the new graphics package, baby. That's a double swap over for TKC. We're going to see Infiltration also swapping out. I believe that's going to be the Newcastle in favor of the Horizon as well. So definitely a couple of changes, but honestly, not as many as I think I might have expected. So I guess this Bangalore Bloodhound combo is a lot more popular on both maps than maybe I gave it credit for initially. So we're going to see a whole bunch of Bang Smokes. We're going to see a whole bunch of Bloodhound scans as we drop in to game number 4, past the halfway mark of this Challenger Circuit number 3 finals. Dia, what teams need to climb out of whatever they were doing on Stormpoint to make it big here?
I think that what I'm going to say is that if you're not pushing Deadass, you're doing a good job. That is the bar that I'm setting for game number 1 of World's Edge. If you're not, okay, pushing Deadass, you're doing a good job. Even 50-50ing, I'll say you're doing a good job. And that is certainly a good job. A damn with some excellent 30-30 shots. Really gets it going for the team. Yu-Gi-Oh! Going to be able to heal up meanwhile. Nice trade-off to the G7. Double marksman weapons and a lot of damage that can be thrown in at a moment's notice. And it is! Amaze gets taken down a notch as Arcstar just forces him further forward. Enigma Gaming don't stand a chance against Pride.
And while we had the benefit of very few contests on Stormpoint, we actually have 3 teams fighting up in Skyhook. We already saw our contest play out in Lava Siphon. These teams are here to fight, and you best believe with 3 games left, they are not going to be giving up their POIs at this point. Internerd Gaming, the victims of this fight here over towards Skyhook, and it's actually getting turned around. DiffQ goes down.
Whoa, he could do it! He could do it! One shot on the zipline! He goes up! He looks for the 3rd floor! He gets the knock! Infiltration around! And it's Yazix that clutches it for Internerd Gaming!
That is absolutely ridiculous. It came down to 5 to 10 HP. Internerd Gaming makes the turnaround happen, but now they're going to have to get their ducks in a row very quickly, because there's another team that's residing on Skyhook right now. Might get to see them in a second here, but for the time being, 3KP on that content creator heavy team that we were sort of mentioning earlier in the day. That's huge for them.
It's such a great start, and especially when Internerd had a difficult time on Stormpoint. They were one of our squads that I think, to your question earlier on, absolutely needed to step it up, as so many do. And to see them pick up that 3KP in such clean fashion, I mean, you can hear the smile in my voice just watching how that fight went down. And I'll tell you what, we're going to get a whole lot more of it. We may not be going to Skyhook, but we are still going straight to a city. It's Fragment that this zone is pulling almost directly towards. And if we haven't reviewed the power positions in Fragment already, it's basically broken building, market. What else am I missing? Anything else?
Probably the streamer building's pretty good, overlooking the train. Yeah. So not too bad. It looks like we might have one team there, and you love to see this. Actually, I was going to call out another team that really has to step it up, and that's actually Team Revenge. They're here very early, making use of that POI that keeps them very central and making that rotation so dang quickly. But whether they picked the right spot for the play they want to make into this late game, we will find that out eventually. Right now, another fight taking place in Harvester, and I think a lot more rotation crashing than I was hoping for in this first game on World's Edge.
There's the knock onto Void. AMV are fighting Intel at the moment, and Intel approaching this with some serious patience right now, or not rushing. Oh, well, I guess they are rushing. Sorry, Flinzar, didn't get the memo. Jet's been dragged into this now, and all of a sudden, everything is out the window. Intel have to full send it, get the knock onto Arcology, and desperately find a reset before somebody else notices that. We talked about this earlier, but that mental stamina you need to keep your gameplay going right. Absolutely. We saw a crack in it from Intel there.
And if they can't recover this fight, it will not be an Intel-Wintel here. And they're still looking for these angles, and they've started to take up good positioning. ICRVR actually getting a lot more damage out and has the ultimate on the Seer to work with as well, but he might not need it here. That's 15 flesh. That's 2 more members going down. Arcology and Void have both dropped, and 1 member left, seemingly from the brink of defeat. They've brought it back, and AMV is out.
That's what I'm looking for. Intel, they've still got it. They don't let it all fall apart. I love the way that Icy was able to sit back, play anchor for the team, keep them safe, and let that reset happen, because as you talked about, there was a lot of danger if they weren't able to recover from a very small misstep. As they were able to, though, they should be able to make their move out of Harvester very quickly. They've already got most of the loot from there. It should be hitting the death boxes and starting to move up towards Fragment, where Intel will have a much better time. You don't want to get choked out of a rotation into Fragment, because teams can and will arrive there early.
Actually, they can't hold out here too much longer, because we can see on our map over on our end that there's actually another team potentially rotating their way. We'll see if they get out in time with the loot that they need, but right now LTC not going to wait around to hope that another team doesn't run into them. They're the ones doing the running. They're the ones looking for these kills. Nice opening damage from McLovin. Dan Mantic actually cracked in the trade, though, eating a little bit of their own Arcstar damage. And Carlon for the side of Team Revenge going down. 178 coming out from McLovin, and Team Revenge is just decimated by LTC Esports.
Apex Legends is 100% a horror game, and I have no idea how McLovin's pants are not soiled right now. Coming around the corner, I didn't expect him to have to take a gunfight, but he was ready for it. He didn't even flinch, and LTC, like you talked about, don't even do them the decency of making it look difficult. Streamer building is theirs, no questions asked, and with the Watson crypto of their own, a defensive setup is easy to make work.
And what a beautiful push there. That is like fairy tale La La Land scenario there for a crypto push onto a Watson team. Team Revenge, they took that spot early, hoping it would work out into the late game, but they end up losing that spot and their lives instead. Really a tough way to go out in the first game of World's Edge.
Deadass, as we would have expected, taking 3v3s around the side of the map. Orioles just walks his way past a live nade and sends it forward with a little bit more damage. Confident enough to push in. Is he confident enough to drop down? The answer is no, and thank God it is, because that might have just been the end of Deadass. Instead, they're going to play safe up top here, and hopefully find their 3v3s a little bit later on. I am curious as to how this squad will transition their own game plan on into World's Edge, though, because the very frag-heavy mentality that they had on Stormpoint should not be as easy to manufacture on World's Edge. And I say that, but it also shouldn't have been as easy to do on Stormpoint, so I'm not sure where this squad's going to end up.
Oh, man, and you know Oriel's is licking his lips, ready to claim this 3KP down below them, but they have the restraint that was needed here to make this rotation, and ultimately I think the spot that they're holding might end up working out for them a little bit better if they take this fight, and I think they might be realizing that now. They want to keep out this squad. They don't want them to walk in for free, and Certified Beamers does not have a Valkyrie, another Valkless team, Dia, which means that they don't have a panic button to hit here. They are going to have to walk out, and there are exactly 3 exits from this tunnel.
All of them are on, well, all of them are on low ground except for the one that takes you straight into people's sites that are trained directly on one tunnel. So we'll call them all unfortunate ground is perhaps the way that we'll label it. As Certified Beamers do have very little wiggle room, they at least know that above the Deadass is getting some good crafting going, and you know what? They could be happy for their comrades in arms, those other Challenger Circuit teams. Deadass are going to be tracking them on the way out and actually moving towards No Name simultaneously, so this may end up being another knock. I'm watching that kill feed because these people team fire like nobody's business. Not Nuts going to hit the sky once more, not going to find any flesh, but does get that crack to open things up, and now it's another push onto a totally separate team because Deadass, they're just looking for fights. It doesn't matter who with.
Yeah, and I don't know what the call there was from Beamers. I guess they recognized that there was crafting going on and they could get the walk-up, but Deadass, that timing, again, it comes down to second after second, Dia, and in this case, Certified Beamers doesn't get any help from really any other squads. In fact, they're the ones getting shot at from afar, so now they have to deal with this squad that has been so notorious for taking clean 3v3s and making it look way too easy. They have 2 purples in lane still sitting on a gray. This is not looking like the best situation, but Deadass doesn't have the craziest shield advantage either, and they don't have this blood handle to work with.
Internerd Gaming are taken out. Meanwhile, we've got this whole fight going on in No Name, but our squads from over by Skyhook really took the fight quite early. It was at the hands of Team Diverge that Internerd expired. We've got a whole nother fight, a whole nother game cooking up outside of these micro fights inside of No Name, because remember guys, the zone doesn't even pull here. This is just keeping track of the squad that's currently number 1, and Oriel's going down could change everything. That's Black Hand that have come up from a completely separate angle, and now Deadass are scrambling to recover.
They made way too much noise here, and Black Hand, we know that in these circles, they love to clear the east. They like to walk away right through Geyser and punish all of these squads that have taken up way too much time on the edge. Black Hand is now flying in and could potentially be taking one of the biggest menaces in the lobby right now. They are 3 strong. I believe Deadass might have picked up their team member, but I don't think it's going to be enough.
Which makes me wonder, by the way, where are Beamers? Because Deadass just got sprinted at, while Black Hand are evidently just fine. They did lose 1 in a trade, but they've walked all the way through No Name. No one else is shooting at them. What were Deadass doing there if they didn't have a squad to siege?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that maybe a little bit too much restraint showed there from Beamers. They realize they have an opportunity to run away, and they just book it. LTC Esports has no opportunity to run away here. Straight up 1v1, not Daniel down to 25 HP. And it looks like the Crypt is going to wipe them out. That's LTC Esports eliminated in 14th, Dia.
And it's at the hands of our squad that, in a way, won last game. They might not have gotten first, but they had the most points, and they've already started to accrue KP yet again. The biggest difference between last game and this is that now they've lost a member mid-game, a trouble, rather, that they saved themselves in the previous match. You gotta hope that they've got a mobile respawn beacon, and hopping outside here, and perhaps with a black market, could be able to find some. Maybe in the crafter. We'll find out.
Yeah, yet to see, but I mean, for the time being, we've lost our number 1 and number 2 team. Deadass loses to the hands of Black Hand, and we see LTC dropping pretty dang early as well, so not going to be scrapping a whole lot of points together. And now we might get to see that fight that I think we might have expected as a third party over on the edge. Blackhand has sort of shifted in, and look at the way the zone is ping-ponging, deal. Like, what do you even do here if you don't have a crypto to scan these beacons? I'm sure that if you're TD, you love the position that you're in right now because you can use that high ground, but they're about to be potentially gifted a really great opportunity to win this game.
They really are, and I look towards the squads that are in the center right now. Intel, Ranch on Spaghetti, TD right above Ranch on Spaghetti, certainly standing out as the squads that can make the biggest plays. Intel's staying power has got to take a step up from what it was last game, though, because we certainly sang their praises just a few games previous, and they ended up losing it all. Meanwhile, speaking of losing it all, the Crypt may have lost a whole lot right now. They dropped that respawn early, looking for the pickup, and while they got their Valk back into the game, they have lost serious momentum with the attention that it attracted to them.
And this streamer building seems to just be a death trap for whatever unfortunate team ends up taking residence here for too long. This Loba is trying to do everything that she can to run away and sustain this game just a touch longer, but that's actually going to be Certified Beamers that's going to be looking to pick up that KP. That's going to be the knock. That's going to be the cleanup as well. So Certified Beamers, you were asking where the heck did they go, and they've actually taken residence in streamer building, which I'm very shocked to see them get the way that they did. Now they have arguably a great position to play this out of. They have some resources as well. So whatever they did, whatever decision they called to run away from Blackhand, it's starting to pay off.
Real quick respect to Dig there, by the way, who was dancing like nobody's business. He was dodging so many bullets. I'm surprised he even died. I'm surprised Certified Beamers got that third KP, because Dig Vibes was doing something different there. As Certified Beamers do have to restabilize, though. There's another squad in the area who is eager to push them, and it's Black Hand laying down the missiles from the train station with a third party already cooking. Saturn are right next door, and there is a fight a-brewing here, especially since all of these three squads are going to have to move themselves up to the northwestern side of Fragment, where this zone continues to rip us.
And I think in this case, the instructions are going to be pretty dang clear. Someone has to make a move here. Blackhand either understands that they have to clear this team. They're going to have to play for this third party and be the last ones to the edge of the circle where there isn't a ton of cover to play with. I mean, they might have one broken ledge and a wall, if that, while teams have already taken up residence in all of these buildings. So either they're going to have to walk in here after they clear these squads, or they're going to hit the Valkyrie, and that seems to be exactly what they're going to do here.
It's a good call, and unfortunately not one that every team has the privilege of making. Diverge, fortunately, though, do have the privilege of not just outlasting Stormtroopers, but pushing forward Ranch on Spaghetti. Blackhand's own Valkyrie doesn't seem to have gone too well either. Intel cleaned them up, and we are starting to get that position in the game where squads start dropping like flies. Team Intel's biggest aim here is going to be holding on without a Watson, without a Newcastle, without, I shudder to say it, a Caustic. Holding on to positions like this can get really difficult, as there's nothing to stop people from climbing up the plethora of angles onto your high ground. But if anyone can do it, Intel have got to hold on until the end of the game.
Yeah, and I really wonder what went through Blackhand's head there with the decision that they made, because that spot that they played, they had to be the last ones there. They weren't the ones that had to Valkyrie it there early. They get absolutely beamed, and they're going to fall very early for it. Void now in a fight, and I don't know if they're going to be able to coexist much longer with this team. That's going to be TKC with the push.
I like that they jump back down as well, paying respect to the Cyril that's just gone off ahead of them. Saturn get taken down, though. Crypt out as well. Finally fully eliminated are both those squads. It means that we've got 9 left, and still not all full. TKC maybe taking us down just that touch more. Certified Beamers with their necessary push onto Intel. Don't end up coming out on top of that. Void stand at a stalemate inside this building. 1 minute left, and their moves have got to be made sooner rather than later, because you don't want to be exiting this building at the same time as TKC.
And they're actually getting funneled into the staircase right now. They keep dealing just enough damage to prevent Void from angling them out, from finding the space that they need. And I think this fight might be bordering on the edge of inevitable here. Two squads here. They have a squad to their south. Team Diverge also sharing a building with another squad. And we see on the far east, Pride making the move that arguably Blackhand should have made. They're still here.
Void dodged that initial engage, though. Wide swing from Meatball does good damage, but doesn't get the knock. Instead, Void finally trade that back a little bit belated. Get 2 for their trouble, but with Blitzen still up, the clean up comes easy. Shield swap into res. 5 seconds left on the zone close. Void played that fight immaculately, but can they recover in time?
Yeah, they're going to have to do this quick because I believe they were, in fact, swung by that team that was just to the south of them. AIM, No Brain is going to be swinging in. And here is the other coexisted building that we saw earlier. Team Diverge actually sharing this with Clinkbot and the ranch of, guess who? Ranch on Spaghetti. They're starting to claim the KP. They're making great use of this Bax idea and potentially going to get to walk in if they can clear the squad as well.
Team Diverge playing safe. Do still have, like you said, our biggest competition, the one that everyone is very conflicted about rooting for, right above them. Intel, though, Intel have given up their spot. They've committed to the low ground, and they're getting pushed. Jet's got no shields, and Intel, they're about to expire. They're gone, and Pride are the ones to take them out. We're into the top 4 now, and I didn't think we were getting there without Intel.
Oh, that's insane. And again, not to twist the knife, but this is where I would have liked to see Blackhand. Pride has done that, and now Pride is swinging in to potentially take out more than one squad. Demigods, though, they're not going to make it look easy at all whatsoever. Nice beams coming out from Cape, and Pride is eliminated, though not before taking out 3 KP on the way there. And now Demigods with 3 red shields gets to stare across the way as this fight breaks out between Team Diverge and Ranch on Spaghetti.
This is such a tight end game, and like you said, all of this time is given to Demigods to set up at their leisure, to watch this fight take place and farm it up as everyone is forced to exit the building. Ranch on Spaghetti are struggling to come up with an exit plan, and I cannot imagine that for Team Diverge things are looking any better. Flankbot doesn't really have a way out right now. Nobody has any answers. Team Diverge have made their way over to market, and Ranch on Spaghetti are going to try and mirror that, playing the truck, playing things slow.
Oh, the
You want to try and sandwich these squads, and Ranch on Spaghetti may have effectively put Team Diverge between them and Demigods.
And actually, Team Diverge using that ultimate from the Wraith to great effect, actually angle out Demigods, and now Demigods is the meat in the sandwich. We get to see Ranch on Spaghetti now holding height up against the last remaining members of Demigods. And from one moment to the next, it seems Team Diverge might have positioned themselves for a potential win here if they can take out Demi Chase and finish off the remaining 4 members on the map.
It's a rat play for Cape, though. Last member standing from Demigods. Could still third party this, could still take someone down a notch. He pops back up into market, and Clankbot chews through him. Demigods are down, but Gobble is out as well. Team Diverge with a sick angle have Sleepy Panda unleashed on the Wraith, and they take game number 4 of the night easily.
Wow, that was just wild there. We always critique some of the character choices that we see, especially when they feel like they're out of meta. They feel like they're not all that powerful. But Sleepy Panda says, hey, 1 port behind the squad that was holding them out was all it took. And when they overcommitted to peeking over on Ranch on Spaghetti, Ranch on Spaghetti punishes them for it and actually ends up granting Team Diverge the win there. What a way to close things out.
Yeah, this was, I think, the perfect way to do so for Team Diverge as well. They have largely, in all of the times they've qualified, both previously, Challenger Circuit now number 1 and Challenger Circuit number 2, they've qualified the finals. It has been rough going for Team Diverge, who every time we show up here, I say I believe in, to come out with a game to 4 win. And like you said, using that Wraith that Sleepy Panda has the trademark schmoves on that really made his name on Absolute Monarchy and RCO. It's a pleasure to watch Team Diverge finally get their time to close out the year with a win. That was game number 4 of the night, and we're going to take a look back at it. We've got 2 more left on World's Edge, and with so many contests that started us off for this round of World's Edge, I do wonder if teams are going to continue hot dropping for the next 2.
Yeah, I mean, we saw there pretty dang early. We have Infiltration up on the north. Team Diverge actually was another team that was up in Skyhook, but they didn't end up taking that fight after Team Infiltration was taken out. And, of course, one more contest over towards the south. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild. It's pretty aggressive start. And, honestly, the worst way to start any of these games is by dying off drop. So, those teams definitely have a lot of ground to cover and only 2 games to do it.
And yes, like you said, I mean, the 2 games, really difficult to rack up appropriate amounts of KP in it as well. We saw a lot of kills this game. They were spread out a whole lot more than they were on Stormpoint, where we saw one squad rolling over everything. This time around, teams, even like Team Diverge up on the high ground by Epicenter, then ultimately in Fragment, didn't get that much opportunity to pick up kills, even as squads moved in around them. So many more nooks and crannies to play around on World's Edge, and the most kills this game was 9. That was taken by Pride, who still ultimately ended the game with 14 points.
Yeah, those close margins we tend to see at the top for the first couple of games no longer here. Team Diverge taking it by 6 points over 4th position to Pride, who ended up 2nd with 9 kills. So definitely did a lot of work, and that was actually the team that was over on the Eastern Edge, and I believe they're the ones that I think made the play I would have loved to see Blackhand make. But Blackhand dropping way too early over on that Eastern Edge, and honestly, that was a potentially game-winning spot for Demigods. I'm not exactly sure why they gave up that ledge, and once that port was down and Sleepy Panda was in their faces, there was really nothing they could do other than give it up. Ranch on Spaghetti continues to climb Dia, and look, I'm not preying on their downfall. I love trying new food, but to see this team continue performing, my taste buds are starting to get a little bit shaky here.
Well, I mean, it's not just you, Mello. I'm getting pretty shook up as well. We have had a completely unprecedented day of games here in Challenger Circuit number 3. It's been really impressive, and I tell you what, we've got 2 more to go. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, it's game number 5. Welcome back to Challenger Circuit numero tres, folks, as we've just finished up game number 4. That was our first on World's Edge, and now we're going to pop into our second, and also, Mello, I'm going to use my favorite word, the penultimate game of the day, where the stakes are high, and the players, well, we'll see what happens, because we've already seen some real chaos on Stormpoint. Normally, I'd be saying that Game 5 is where we really start to dial it in, where those last-place teams start really getting worried about how they'll finish the day. But with the way that things are turning out, Game 5 may just end up being our calmest. It's our second drop onto World's Edge, and maybe the time when teams aren't hot dropping as much.
Yeah, we saw a lot more contested than we saw on Stormpoint for sure throughout the first 3 games. So I'm curious to know if any teams will adapt for the sake of conserving the rest of their games on World's Edge. Taking a look at the standings, even though they fell pretty dang early, Deadass and LTC are still holding up those top 2 spots with 51 and 49 respectively, though Ranch on Spaghetti not only doing great, Dia, but also starting to widen the gap between themselves and the rest of the members of the top 5. They've got 6 points on TKC, and I think that makes it 9 points on Demigod. So they're doing work right now, and I've been really impressed with their calls so far.
Yeah, Wrench on Spaghetti are just, separating themselves from the rest of the lobby, but I think most importantly, separating themselves from where they were last week. This team is not messing around, and the improvement that we've seen in 2 weeks alone, just absolutely incredible. I think this was a very passive squad that struggled to take fights 2 weeks ago, and now we are seeing a team that I would still say, while characterized as passive, is using that passivity and that willingness to take mediocre positions and turning it to their advantage, saying, nobody's probably going to push us here, but we're going to try and get active from this position. We know what this means in the lobby, and nobody, not even Team Diverge, is taking it for free.
Yeah, absolutely. And there we saw that stat. They are first place right now for average placement points. So, that just goes to or average overall placement with 3.5. So that just goes to show, like you said, Dia, they can get to spots early, sure, but can they play out of the bad spots for the long time, not just for the fun time that they might have when they arrive there? Truly just making great use, getting great value. We keep hammering on that one idea of being proactive when you're in the zone, when you have decent positioning, and turning things around when you don't. So Ranch on Spaghetti doing great work here, and that's actually the game that we just watched is also a great sign for them, because while they had, on par with the games that they had in Stormpoint, Deadass and the other squad up on top, LTC, definitely did not.
It's certainly true. Both of these, I would say, rather frag-heavy squads struggling, as we had predicted, to pick up as many kills as easily on World's Edge as they did on Stormpoint. However, they do get a second run at it, and as this zone looks like it's pulling a little off to the south, we don't actually have it on our maps just yet, although we did just a second ago, so we'll see when that comes back up. We know that we're going to be pulling further away from Fragment at the very least this time, and all of our northern squads are going to have quite a long way to go. Those northern squads certainly including Ranch on Spaghetti, who did prioritize being in zone for the past 2 games.
And it looks like the contests are going to be much the same, Dia. No one willing to give this up. That's going to be Team Diverge over on the east side of Skyhook. And we once again have infiltration against Inner Nerd Gaming. We'll see who ends up taking it this time. Last time, Inner Nerd Gaming came through with the 3v3 dub. And ID going early means that this could potentially be going the exact opposite way for them as DivQ picks up the first knock.
That is a really nice thermite, though. Just a bamboozle and right into Team Diverge as well, who have wasted no time looting up. Inner Nerd Gaming run for the hills. We'll see how long Dame can survive, if at all. Team Diverge likely still chasing this, but they've got another squad to look at as well. You don't want to miss the forest for the trees, and Team Diverge, though they are on white shields, with 2 separate knocks so far, could find themselves in a position to wipe out not one but both squads.
And they seem to be investing pretty dang heavily on this move, but they have to continue to loot, because before, they didn't get involved at all in this third party, but this time around they're there pretty early, and I think that means they've also shoved that squad of infiltration back into these little buildings, this little corner that they have to work with from the start. So this could be good for TD, but they have to continue looting, and I think more importantly here, as you mentioned, they are far north. They have a long way to walk, so they have to get moving as well.
Deadass all the way to the south. Well, we don't have too far to walk. Let's just go and fight someone. We know that teams like Blackhand land in this area, and with the squad actually running away right now, that's likely to be them. Deadass very well could follow this up, but with the use of a replicator, there's no reason not to pick yourself up a little bit more juice before heading into the zone. Only one bat for Goat so far. That can absolutely be remedied.
Yeah, absolutely. They have control over this crafter here. Blackhand moving out pretty early, and they're most likely going to pick up that beacon over towards launch site as they walk their way in. And it looks like the teams that do have that beacon information are already starting to glide their way over towards the eastern side of this POI here. That's going to be Thermal Station, where everyone is already kind of started to float. And I like this play from Revenge. Again, they're able to pick some pretty good spots early, but can they hold them with how willing many of these squads are to take 3v3s in the early game? That really is what it comes down to for Team Revenge.
I like that they've at least picked this spot for now. That was a really nice, surprisingly not oob position from Lily as well, just to make sure that you got the angles. A little bit of extra height, maybe a good ratting endgame position. Who knows? Enigma sat right next to them, don't have the advantage of a beacon on them, but what they do have is a crypto. And for Team Enigma, who have had a relatively lackluster performance today, that extra data could make all the difference. We've got Intel rotating in on the low ground as well, just up above them. AMV, we're setting up offensively, taking as much space as possible, and this is one of those positions for AMV where up on the height, when you control the difference between Shri and Thermal Station, setting up Watson fences like this, making your presence known as much as possible is only going to benefit you.
Absolutely. And I will say, I do like that position a little bit better when we do get pulls over towards Thermal Station, because right now, there's going to be a multitude of squads pulling into the north. LTD Esports just doing work with that Peter right now, and there's another 3v3 right in front of him that they're just going to continue to soak up kills from.
Crypt just hits the quick shield swap on it too. Then full knock comes in, and Crypt are like, oh, thank you so much for the body, I'll just take the blue right off of that. It ends up being the difference between them and Stormtroopers as well, as Crypt barely came out on top of that, and now have the whole building to themselves.
Yeah, that is absolutely ridiculous. They get to soak up this loot as well. I believe we saw a Watson gen there left by their opponents that they're also going to get to utilize. And Blackhand, once again, pretty early to a spot that they're going to defend from in this case. They got away from these sight lines of that squad over towards the east. Dead ass, definitely a squad to be feared and respected. They're not going to have any business with them. They've got two purples to work with as well, so I think they might be a little slim on the resources deal. We'll see if they have enough to play this one out.
What a stacked south side of the map, though. Pride, Blackhand, and Crypt all right on top of each other, sharing hallways in the mid game. Not even the mid game, the early game. Round one hasn't even closed yet. And are we really back on this?
Is this a thing? Are we getting like trolled? I hope not, because that a little sus. Anyway. Yeah, but Blackhand, I mean, I like their position, right? They have the risk, of course, of getting pincered if this continues to pull away from them, but with the way these ring pulls are, truthfully, I couldn't make a very strong guess here, at least with how these zones have treated us, we'll say. But look at how crowded that south side is. You called it out, but dang, that's so many squads that have taken up early residence.
Yeah, this looks like a pretty good call from them as well. If I had to guess, I'd say we're going pretty deep tree this time around. And I like taking the guess early because if I'm wrong, it's just good content. And if I'm right, I'm right, and that feels amazing.
Which is godlike, yeah.
Exactly. It's a no loss scenario for the broadcast. Black Hand, maybe in a losing scenario, however. Is that nade going to take a chunk out of Yasuo? It is just a small chunk, though. A little love bite of the nade. Kotigami eating quite a bit of deeps as well. And their position, while theoretically defensible, is being sieged from both sides, making the big difference in Black Hand's game plan. A game plan that may very well come to an end soon. I'd like to see them push, but they haven't found an opening on either side. And Yasuo is again set back by these constant barrage of nades, of bullets that are flying in at them.
Yeah, and this is really tough. It's hard to be active in this position because if you get fried by a squad, that squad might push you, or you get, one clipped and have to come back and heal, and the squad behind you decides then is the time to peek you and take you out. So Black Hand really having to play both sides of this constantly, and they're bleeding ammo and resources the entire time. So this is going to be pretty difficult to hold, and it's even difficult to commit to a fight because the third party is literally a building's length over from where you are now. So Black Hand is going to have to play their faces off if they're going to survive in this building.
No more bats, 2 clips of ammo, and Black Hand, I think, make the right call, but they make it too late. Yasuo is taken down as they commit to the push on Pride, and now a third party, not even on Pride's mind, as they have nothing to worry about. There's a half a squad, 2/3 of a squad, maybe less on them soon, as Pride continue to play safe inside this building. Still plenty of resources for them, and they get to collect the meager leftovers that Black Hand have left them.
Yeah, Black Hand still holding on to whatever scrap of space that they can, and Pride did burn some resources, but like you said, they've been gifted a little bit here, and I'm not entirely sure. Oh, it looks like they went for that banner recovery. I'm not sure if they got it there. I think based on what we can see on our map stream, they actually did recover it, so Black Hand may be able to recover one. We'll see if they can pull this one off, Tia, but they're going to have to pull this game from the deepest trenches, really just imaginable at this point.
Now, we've been watching this the whole time, seeing how this 3v3 evolves, but we haven't gotten the chance to check back in on the map state and whether these positions that teams like Pride, Black Hand, and Crypt have been battling over are actually going to age well. When we get the chance, we'll be checking in with that map to see exactly where this next ring is going to pull us and how well these positions will age in the end. Team Revenge have taken, I would say, a pretty risky gamble here, but one that should split the difference between zones that pull us over to Thermal and into Tree. While their generator may not be in a safe position, I'd characterize Team Revenge as being in a pretty decent one.
That's pretty tragic there. You see the pings on where maybe the next gen should go. And it is actually really important that that gen is up because the squad that is right in front of them, this is a relatively ISO 3v3 if they take it quickly. They don't have a horizon to make quick work of it, even with that generator down. So it would still be a pretty big commit, but an ISO one nonetheless. So we'll see if they coexist for the time being and whether one of these teams commits to a move. But they will survive for now. Now the north side of the map, this is where things are going to get interesting.
Deadass?
Dead ass?
Thank you. They were the ones sitting over by Lava Siphon, and I mean, if history's any teacher, they'll be fighting soon. This is the God care package for Team Revenge. No idea how they rolled this. I've never even seen a care package land there before, but somehow, some way, they got that extra little juice, and the extra cover that's going to provide is going to be, honestly, way more important than the loot itself, barring something like a Kraber. We're now down to 17 squads as Void expire passively around the outside of the map. But Team Diverge are winners from last game. They're out as well.
Yeah, they actually get taken out by, I believe, LTC, or maybe ate some damage that ultimately ended up taking them out. And another squad that we haven't talked about all that much that is finally starting to make their way into another endgame. I don't think they've seen an endgame since game number 1, really, and that's going to be Infinity. Infiltration, who are about to walk into the waiting hands of what was formerly Team Valkyrie here. Certified Beamers waiting in the wings for a 3v3.
Team Revenge still waiting around the outside, confident enough even to take to the height right now. Infiltration that you called out earlier, pulling off the gold res knockdown shield combo with the Newcastle, right back into the fight with you, we the people. There is no time for slacking off here. Certified Beamers, they get shooed through as Infiltration refuse to bite the dust. And they'll get the opportunity to move themselves in just that little bit further to tree. No Valkyrie, however, on Infiltration. I think you called this out earlier, but squads like this are going to have a real difficult time, especially with transitions to the south, where there's a lot of height and not a whole lot of cover that they can use.
Thankfully for them, a lot of these teams have opted for getting to zone pretty early, so their rotation is relatively clear, at least for this next walk-up, and it might become even more clear as Deadass looking for this 3v3, but Goat going down very early. Satiability with the knock, but immediately turning this one around. TKC is eliminated, and Deadass claims 3.
I got to appreciate the way that Deadass played that as well. They knew they had one knock, and committing onto the low ground, they knew they were likely going to give up one person and still were convinced they could win the fight. And when you look at the history of this squad on paper, it absolutely makes sense. They were able to fully win the fight as well, so history will continue to support them. What do they say? It's written by the winners. But Deadass, now 3 KP the richer, and still in zone as well, get to move their way back up to their former position and play this out with regularity. It's as if nothing happened for Deadass.
And Team Revenge seems to have been forced into that rotation that we talked about earlier, and it's Team Intel that's going to clean them up. They do lose Jet, but playing in this truck, they're relatively safe and not really at a massive risk of getting pushed, though. That was a cancel onto the res, and up towards the north, we saw them take out Team what was that? Goodness, I keep forgetting. These name changes are killing me. Formerly Team Valkyrie got taken out by them, and Infiltration is now going to try and infiltrate this truck, but Taxi 2G going down solo.
And Taxi was trying to poke in there as well. He does get finished off by DiffQ, who gets that re-knock on Intel. Taking down Flinzar. Infiltration still have a shot at taking this, but actually sieging the RV is so difficult from the position that they're in. And even with this low ground, even with this zone pull, let's take a look at how this is going, because not a whole lot of teams would have predicted this.
That's ridiculous, and that actually plays perfectly into the game plan of Infiltration. So they took the one fight that they needed, Dia, and they are gifted this next ring for it. It's technically not on them per se. It's actually right on top of Team Intel, who has early position, but is a man down. And another team that we've continued to praise, Deadass, they're one of the last teams on the far east of the map. So they're also going to have a bit of a walk-up to execute here before they can walk into the next ring.
We've still got this whole fight going on as well, although I will say it's changed hands. Saturn are now coexisting with Crypt, and unfortunately, Pride are still stuck in the middle of this. You can only imagine that resources have continued to dwindle for this squad, and that they've got a defensive EMP ready to go at a moment's notice. Having a team directly underneath you has never done anyone's heart any good. Pride need that Thermite as well as the Horizon ult that comes with it. Oh, damn, you've been getting sucked in for another tick of damage. Well, it won't hurt them too much. There's going to be another shield cell out, another bit of time spent, and that's with 4 seconds left on the ring close. A ring that you cannot tank. This is zone number 4, and if the ring is at your back, you're gone.
Oh, and Jake can't be tanking any more damages from Adium, but right as they have their distractions sort of made for them, Pride getting shot in the back, Floop going down so low and now has to fully res up, and a push is here.
MJ, where did he go? He went for the push, he got 2 knocks, and then he disappeared off their screen. You just couldn't touch this Horizon. And Saturn get another 3v3 wipe, a very quick one. And like you talked about, great recognition of when there was just that slight distraction going on for them. We've got a whole nother fight going on as Blackhand try to recover underneath this building. They got Demigods next to them, but Saturn have gone out in the meanwhile. LTC picking up several kills on their way in, and Blackhand still needing to make that trek towards the next zone. A minute 30 left. Yasuo on his own with white shields under here. This is going to have an almost impossible recovery to make, especially as that heal gets cancelled. And now you've got no knockdown shield to hide behind. Ranch on Spaghetti get taken down. Our taste buds get that much safer. But Blackhand have nowhere to go, and Yasuo's out, moving us into the top 8.
Credit to Blackhand because they really had to pull it from the trenches to come out in this top 10 position. They're finally eliminated, and Team Intel loses whatever fight went down on the truck, presumably to the likes of Team Infiltration, who has actually peeled back a little bit. And there we see up above, they've been holding here since the early game. You mentioned how incredibly important it is for them to control this space, and they've held it down the whole time. AMV now gets some high ground here to work with in the end game.
And in a traditional circle poll would be looking at AMV and Crypt and saying they've got the God spot. But because of what just went down on the low ground, we're actually instead singing the praises of Infiltration, who have been enabled by this guerrilla warfare playstyle that they had going on to Team Intel. Now they're the ones sitting in the RV, and while it may not be high ground, we've already seen how difficult it is to push. Consider the fact that Infiltration are also running a new castle, and whether you like it or not, it's going to help them hold down the RV even further. Demigods take to the sky, going to try and avoid taking too much damage from this zone, but 2 ticks still going to come in, dealing plenty enough damage that Demigods should be pickings coming out of the sky. They're going to drop down onto the high ground. Where are AMV?
Why were they gifted this? That's absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, they're getting shot at from the center, but I'm so incredibly shocked AMV gave this early. And look where they've opted to play. They've actually chosen a spot really just praying that Watson gen holds it down all the way through while this squad next to them dies. And maybe they know something we don't, because the drop down is here onto the Crypt.
Well, Crypt did not see that coming, and they get wiped out pretty darn quickly. Demigods are going to watch it happen from the knockdown shield, but I suppose the move from AMV, picture perfect in this case. It was technically in the ring, and while it looked risky, the 2 squads next to them just bit the dust way too quickly. And speaking of teams that have bitten the dust way too quickly, Infiltration are out here again, seemingly for no reason, taking a fight that sends them to their graves, sends them to the lobby, and puts LTC in the top 2.
The top 2, they take a fight with Deadass. They might have called out the duo and said, it's just 2, let's kill him. Little did they know that it was actually Deadass who was going to potentially actually just fully ruin the game for them. And now LTC versus AMV for the win.
Crypto ult is perfect. It clears out the way for LTC, and they might lose 1, but they win the game. What a way to finish that for LTC, who from the high ground were able to easily identify and destroy their opponents.
That was fantastic work. They bide their time. They let all of the insane fights just break out. A lot of question marks from me for that Infiltration squad, because truthfully it looked like they had one of the most defensible positions there in the end ring, especially with the new castle, which again, on paper, when you get that thing to the end game, you can set up so much cover, so many angles to potentially win that out. But actually falling in the end after pushing the duo of Deadass just again continues to cause problems all throughout World's Edge. They did it on Stormpoint, they're doing it on World's Edge here, and a significantly better game for them as well in game number 5.
Yeah, I'm glad that they got the chance to step back up, because they are still in the fight with LTC for that top spot, though I'm expecting that after a game like that, LTC may very well have alley-ooped Deadass and gotten themselves in the position that we thought previously was insurmountable from Deadass. We'll take a look back at how this game played out because it was full of chaos, much like most of our games today have been. But I will say, it felt a lot more controlled than game number 4.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams were playing and jogging for good positions. I think that's something that's pretty critical, though. Again, the mistakes continue to come through. Blackhand on paper maybe had a decent spot there that we saw in Tree, but it's so difficult to defend there when you have 2 squads just pressuring you the entire time. It becomes so tough in the end. And yeah, here we get to see the final moments of infiltration. What a play from AMV, by the way. I literally... I was about to truthfully talk smack about the fact that they gave up that height, but that was actually the play that got perfect for them to deal with the team above and below them simultaneously.
Yeah, that was absolutely my bad. I remember going, what are they doing? And then I looked at the zone and went, oh, that's in zone. That's actually really not bad. It's still surprising, though. Still surprising, and I'm sure that caught a lot of teams off guard, specifically Crypt, who got dropped on like nobody's business. That game, though, net LTC 16 points, 28 total. They're almost touching 30 there.
Bro, 16 kills. What a ridiculous scoreline. They actually polish it off with a win as well. So almost a 30 banger idea. If they weren't ahead before this game, they have certainly made that happen here, even before we get to take a look at the overall standings. Infiltration finally racking up some much needed points to move up on the standings. Demigods, a little bit of a return to form, I'd say. They were only top 5, but 8 kills, not too shabby for them either.
Let's take a look at the overall scoreboards now and see where our teams are ending up. 1 game left to go, and by 17 points, LTC have the lead. They've taken Deadass down a peg, and after being, I say again, robbed of their spot in Pro League qualifiers last week, they get the chance to lock it in this week. With 1 game left to go, can they hold on to this lead?
I mean, it's looking pretty good, Dia. I really don't know, because we've seen what Deadass can do, but can they do it on World's Edge as well as they did on Stormpoint? I think that's the question that we have to be asking in game number 6.
Yeah, looking out for my boy Mello. We're keeping our eyes on Ranch on Spaghetti. Demigod's just 1 point behind them. And so, with so many questions, who will be eating ranch on spaghetti? Will anyone be eating ranch on spaghetti? And most importantly, will LTC be going to Pro League qualifiers? We'll answer all those and more when we get back with game number 6. Welcome back to Challenger Circuit, folks. It's almost time. It's almost time, Mello, for our last game of 2022. Ooh. I'm not ready for it. But you know what? We don't have a choice because the players are probably ready for it. Before we jump in, let's take a look at the overall leaderboards to see where we're sat once again, reestablish those stakes. LTC on the verge of pushing themselves into the Pro League quals. And with the amount of points that they've got so far, they're probably a pretty high seed if they secure this as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of points racked up for them in this 5-game series thus far. 17-point lead over Deadass, who was definitely kind of running the game on our Stormpoint maps, but now they seem to be just on the outside looking in. They've lost their lead, and truthfully, they haven't shown the same resiliency on this map, but I'm curious to know if they're going to go crazy here. And LTC Esports, it really is kind of their tournament to lose at this point.
We're going to send energy to our bottom teams as well. There are squads that have yet to pick up a whole lot of points, have yet to cross that top 10 threshold. I'm looking at you, Stormtroopers. I'm looking at you, Inner Nerd. This is the finals. It is, as we said, the last game of 2022 for these squads in the Challenger Circuit, and you want to close this on a win. Whether it be LTC or no, someone is going to be ending with the last game of ALGS, the champions. And that is the storyline worth keeping track of. We'll take a look as we drop into World's Edge for game number 6 of the day.
Yeah, and shout out to all of the teams that may be a little bit lower in the standings. Oh, hold up. I was wondering if this was going to go down. Yeah, we have a contest. Deadass is out for blood, and they have 2 knocks on LTC.
They could do it. This could be the gap for Deadass. They walk up, and already with those 2 knocks, like you said, it's a matter of time. LTC are gone. The hunt drop works, and Deadass, they take their fate into their own hands. We'll see you next year, LTC.
Oh my goodness, and now we prepare for the salt posting, most certainly, because that, I actually, you know what this made me think of? This made me think of back when Tiff was actually shouting out Blackhand potentially having to make a crazy play to shove their way through a preseason qualifier, and it looks like this team has taken a page out of that book and doing it successfully this time around, and now they have potentially on a silver platter the best opportunity I think any team could have ever asked for to steal this one away, and oh, that's so painful to say for LTC.
LTC fuming right now, but they're not the only ones. Inner Nerd Gaming, the top and the bottom of our leaderboard, eliminated in 20th and 19th respectively. Team Diverge, the ones to pick up those kills, and with their last opportunity to do so as well. We say goodbye to yet another squad, but the fights continue as nobody is taking this game as a lie down and play it for endgame. Void are already pushing up into Lava Fisher and look to be taken on Stormtroopers with a nade right next to... Okay, that must have been friendly.
Friendly nade for the time being. Meatball just trying to hold on to the scrap of cover. And look at the patience, Dia. They were just waiting for the call. He's won, and the angle that he was holding was perfect there. Now finally getting swung on. Deals 52 damage, has the shield advantage, but doesn't have his teammates with him, and it goes down.
A little bit separated from the rest of the squad. It evens things up for Stormtroopers, but that is a beautiful gravity lift as Schnitzelman finds the next knock. We've got a res going off for Void, and as that gets wide swung on, it turns into a 1v1 at the end that ultimately our Schnitzelman is able to clean up again. Stormtroopers fall down. And again, we start cleaning up from the bottom up. Inner Nerd are down. Stormtroopers are down. Both teams that should have had much better days today. They've got to look towards a new page in their books.
BR Game 6, baby. You'll love to see it. This always gives us a little bit of a treat on the way out. And honestly, this is pretty big for some of the teams that are sitting right in the middle of the pack or are realistically outside looking in by 1 game. I mean, Team Revenge has, I think, only racked up 8 points so far, but if they catch a dub and they jump up to 28 points, you know, a couple kills on their way there, they could realistically soak up double the amount of challengers points that they would have otherwise. So this game still means a lot to some of these lower squads who are grinding through these challenger circuits. And as you said, last ALGS game of the year, that would be a perfect bow on top of 2022.
Yeah, and it has to be stated that even making it to the finals in CC3 is an achievement, and it's something that so many players are never able to touch. The fact that we have the luxury of looking at these squads and picking and choosing what they can do better, where they are falling short, is just that. It is a privilege. And with all these teams fighting for their very tournament lives, for their chance at Pro League, it sucks that we have to say goodbye to some of them, but honestly, I can't lie, you Mello. It's kind of fun watching everyone do their best. We got another squad likely going out, as that should have been the last member. Team Saturn tried to get in on it. I believe it was Wizard Coin that picked up the kill. Saturn fully playing out of tree at the moment and being gate kept from the high ground.
Lots of teams here trying to just jog for a little bit of position. These game sixes always feel a little bit out of whack, we'll say. Sometimes the game plans kind of fall apart. The map is a little bit more open than you would like to see. And yeah, we're going to see some weirdness, I reckon, including Wizard Coin going down extremely low right now. And I don't know, it probably has the meds to work with, but just waiting out for a second. This low ground is not a great spot for this squad.
They're double pushing it down. Everybody's coming back, and Pride, woohoo! Definitely get scared there. The sound of that gravity lift just rips them off the high ground. We've got some crazy stuff going on the kill feed as well. Sister finding a double knock with frags means that TKC go out, and it's the Crypt that are getting rolling again. They had one hell of a game as we had our last game on Storm Point. Now, maybe that's their thing. Last games on maps is absolutely a trademark you can claim. We don't have any squads that have that so far, but the Crypt, they may just be the ones to look for, as our final game on World's Edge could very well be stacking in their favor.
And as this unfolds, we get to watch over. I'm glad we got to pan, because this is Deadass actually taking on Blackhand, but Deadass now recognizing that they have to back up. They may have overstayed their welcome and didn't find the KP, and Blackhand now has to deal with another squad coming in from their south. It's actually going to be Amaze and Co, who are potentially going to take a fight with them as well. And we've hardly had time to talk about their rotations, Dia. I don't even know where this ring is going, man. I'm just seeing fight after fight after fight. Team Diverge taking an early fight of their own here. They're super looted up from the looks of it. And it looks like it's going to be Lane and the rest of Certified Beamers trying to deal some damage here to Team Diverge's points.
Yeah, fortunately, a building allows Team Diverge to have this nesting point with which to play. AJ taking to the top, does pop right back over into the other side of the bunker just to make sure he stays with the team. Doesn't want to look into the gas for too long. Certified Beamers still playing around this rock as well, or holding on to height. But you said we didn't talk about that ring, and for both these teams, it doesn't matter until it certainly does. 2 minutes left, and this fight's going slow. There's a whole third party waiting as Infiltration are looking at this, mouths watering, but that zone's pulling us ever so much further south. Certified Beamers, whoa! We are very exposed out there.
Oh my, and Certified Beamers, I think, recognizes now that they're not just dealing with one squad, so they've done the damage. They've shoved Team Diverge into the third party coming in from Infiltration. Infiltration has already gotten a knock, and it looks like they're going to continue to press. Team Diverge is eliminated, and Infiltration is looking for more.
They should be able to find it as well. No escape towards this northern end of the map. Not without a cheeky Valk ult, but height makes all the difference right now. And Certified Beamers, they may just be doing just that. Ranch on Spaghetti, no! They fall so early! And look at that! That is an aggressive Newcastle ult onto the high ground. Infiltration, they are playing with their cards on the table, taking all the risks, making all the moves, and they don't get a kill there. I gotta respect the gumption from them.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting and intelligent use of it here, but this is what I love to see. That Q from the Newcastle. You can just hold a spot that you otherwise wouldn't be able to angle out from and just deal so much damage for free, though, of course. Eventually, when that thing goes down, you're going to eat a whole bunch of damage in return, but I think a lot of that damage has been done, and this fight is starting to get on the far too long side of things. This is going to be ring 2 damage that both of these teams are going to have to end up dealing with, and I don't think either team has a Valkyrie.
Meanwhile, Crypt have taken down yet another squad. I'm keeping my eyes on that snowball since it appears to be gathering momentum down the hill. I don't know if anyone will have the chance to stop it. Certified Beamers certainly won't. They're having difficulty even making it out of survey camp alive, but as to whether they want to or not, that's a whole different story. They seem to be looking for another kill, getting confident right now, and with just one squad ahead of them for the moment, we've swapped hands entirely. We've got, I believe, yet another team looking to enter this, to third party onto the fight between Certified Beamers and Infiltration, but the time's gotta be now. Saw's looting up, and I'm not hearing any shots come in. Finally, we get that interrupt on the heels. Scan gonna answer right back as Saws takes to the skies. And it's behind this rock. Certified Beamers start tanking zone, and it's gonna be okay. It is just zone number 1. But even so, having to walk through a whole nother team right here cannot be very heartening. It's already been really hard fought.
You have to wonder how many resources they have left after having to take what was essentially a fight against 2 teams throughout this entire ordeal. You don't see a scan behind them, and it looks like Void has just opted to disengage here, playing for positioning instead. But with 11 squads left as round 2 closes, there is, truthfully, more than enough space to play with right now.
Yeah, we're not too worried about it. There's a very high pace of game in game number 6. It tends to happen. We predicted it for game number 5 as well, and we didn't get that nearly as much. We did still have some pretty high KP going down between our teams, but these fights continue to take place as our squads know just as much as we do that this is their last shot, at least for the next 2 weeks, and that's a long time, especially when you are looking for your future in the Pro League. Deadass certainly hunting theirs and hunting it aggressively. They already started off the game by landing in Fragment. They haven't picked up too much other KP just yet, but it was 17 points that they needed to make up, and right now they've only got 4, including placements. Goat gets some good damage in. Not Nuts finds the knock, and that's got to be the go button because you are looking for every kill you can get right now. Goat gonna bide his time. Reload, come around the corner, doesn't find the knock, and Wizzy instead finds one back. Deadass playing with fire. They might get burned.
Right now, they're holding on, but unfortunately for them, there's another team that's starting to look their way in. That's going to be Pride coming in from the western side. Deadass does lose Orioles, and it's going to be a monumentally difficult task to pick up that banner. Goat PS, excuse me, most likely going to go down here. Does go down indeed, and now Pride is hunting. Pride is looking for the 3 KP that they have rightfully earned as they walked into this third-party situation. The last member is going to be Orioles, and that's going to be essentially a 1 clip coming out of Adium, and Deadass has been knocked out without sufficient points to actually take the crown away from LTC.
LTC are thanking their lucky stars right now, and rage tweets aside, they can finally breathe. Their spot will not be taken by the 2nd place squad today. It won't be taken by the 3rd place squad. And for Demigods to take this away, they'd need a whole heck of a lot more points. So I think they're pretty comfortable right now. We will get the chance to confirm it at the end, but LTC should be our next squad that is finishing at number 1 in the Challenger Circuit. That is going to be a nice way for them to end the year. Pride, in the meantime, are still looking for their win, as you want that last victory, of course, as well. We've already talked about several squads that are accruing momentum, and Void are still wandering around in the north simultaneously. Pride may very well encounter them on the rotation in, but with only 9 squads left, like you said, there's a whole lot more room here than most squads will be used to.
I mean, and with a name like Pride, that's exactly what you're playing here, right? You're not going to win the tournament at this point, so might as well go out with a dub. Feel a little bit better about your performance so far because, again, it's a testament just to get here, but to take a win against this incredibly stacked lobby is a whole other achievement in and of itself. Team Revenge, another team that has really just struggled throughout the week, has a potentially decent position to play out of, and as fights break out above them, it might get even better if they third party.
Taken down. The sky a little too dangerous, even for Valkyrie. Blackhand going to be able to get the res off on the opposite side. No gold knockdown to make this easier, and Yazto getting full thirsted means the Blackhand have to take just the two-person reset. Cody healing up, does have to think of a creative way to get their third back in the game, because like you said, last chance, and really, every placement point matters, because whether this be your first, your second, even your third time making it up to these qualifiers, you want to be in those top 18 by points at the end of the year. And Blackhand want to keep themselves in that conversation for higher seeding in the winner's bracket. Cody with the swing almost takes one down, but it looks like it's a 2 versus 3, and for Blackhand, it's a little too much at this point in the game. Intel have come around, and Saturn are the ones that take this fight up against them on single digits of health. Wizard Coin is somehow healing up, but Intel are not giving an inch. In fact, they are taking a mile, and angles on angles belong to Team Intel. How is this G7 not hitting? Finally, Flinzar does find a knock, but it's far from the cleanup. Saturn do eventually go down, and Intel claim their spot.
There's another squad that seems to be joining the fray, and that's actually going to be Pride, who has walked up all the way from Fragment, having taken out the only team that could potentially play spoiler to LTC's win in Challenger Circuit number 3 finals. But they slow it up for now. They decide to play for that southern side of zone, and look at where this is pulling. Unless you have something pretty dang defensive, it's going to be open season for all of the squads with high ground.
Bro, what is this ring? What?
it's literally pulling out like what?
Yeah, this is an unusual one, especially with the mid game as it has been, evidently pulling a little bit more towards Overlook. The sudden pivot of the zone to go right back into the open ground is something that we stereotypically would see a lot more well associated with mid games that are focused around No Name. Instead, Team Revenge in this particular case are going to be ones that are particularly worried as well. They don't have to think about the rotation into this next zone. The one following that should continue to pull us over towards the RV in between No Name and Overlook is going to be extraordinarily difficult for anyone to live through.
And now, as this space starts to collapse, Meatball and the rest of Team Void getting absolutely free shots all throughout this entire engagement. And I actually misspoke. The team that's down to the south wasn't Pride. It was Enigma, who have actually taken the spot that you said right near that RV, which is definitely great. But I don't know if they have the defensive characters to hold it there. We'll see here if Void and, of course, the team that we have over towards the east, both Intel and Team Revenge, will be licking their lips, hoping to find some KP there. But the shots are going to be a little difficult to manage, especially as Void starts to take up even more position on the west.
They're taking a lot of space, and space does mean everything here. You've been saying it since the beginning of the day. Angles, taking real estate, making sure that you've got coverage on everything. That's exactly what we're seeing Void do. And on the other side of this, we've already talked about the challenges that Team Revenge are going to face, because, well, other teams are looking for angles. Team Revenge really only have one, and it's a straight line out to this RV. There is no safety between them and the rest of the lobby as soon as they leave this low ground.
Yeah, and this is going to come down to, I think, a very well-timed Crypto Ultimate to cover themselves just a tad before they walk up. But there might actually be another Crypto on this squad that is going to do very much the same as Team Revenge walks out. So it's really going to come down to the drone play, whipping out the iPads, and it's going to come down to, I think, one big move here for Team Revenge. If they can manage this, it could be massive for them.
There goes at least one EMP. Making Enigma's job that much more difficult. They are running seriously low on meds as well. That was the last shield cell out of Wizzy, and now there's an Arcstar at their door. The push is coming through, and Enigma, they've pulled the trigger. That little bit of extra damage from the Thermite is the only thing keeping them at bay, but there's still a squad behind them. Team Revenge getting sandwiched in as Intel wrap all the way around on this. They're playing just this little corner of the RV that I hesitate to even call it safe. Arcstar landing right next to them, and Team Revenge have no options. They sit down, they take the damage because they've got no other choice. Enigma finally have to refocus as squads pour in around them as nades start to fill the inside of this RV, but we've still, technically, and in name alone, got 4 squads left. Make it 3 as Team Revenge are eliminated.
Oh, that was almost tragic. Team Revenge actually going there for the shield swap, but accidentally starting a res on their teammate. But in any case, Team Intel has taken up all this space, and truthfully, probably all the space that they need to have a game-winning position. Turns out Enigma wins the game of attrition, the fight of attrition against Team Revenge, but they have at least one more squad right up above them that they're going to have to walk out into, and of course Team Intel just holding this entire hillside. And as we approach this end game, the tools, the resources that the teams have at their disposal to take this game, they are starting to run slim.
Void and Intel really the ones facing each other down right now. Nobody wants to even look at this RV the wrong way, lest they refocus the team, lest they take the wrong fight and open themselves up to a third party. Blinzar, though, unafraid, is on this incredible angle right now. He takes down Blitzen, and Icy is the one to take out Schnitzel. That's Void just gone, and Team Intel could very well do it. They control the exits to this RV, and the game has gone from 0 to hero very quickly. That's one hell of a flank from Blinzar as the RE45 sings, and Team Intel take the final game of 2022.
Yeah, they weren't going to throw that one away. Perfect angling there onto the other squad to the east. And finally, like shooting fish in a barrel, except you're doing with an RE45 charged up from the care package. Fantastic cleanup there from Intel. Very well deserved. And they take down the last game of Challenger Circuit number 3 finals, the last game of 2022, and fly up the standings with that performance.
You can see the grin on my face. You already know. Those guys are my boys, all the way back from the gas station gaming days. I bring it up every time I see them. But for Team Intel to finish out the year like this, what a victory. Now, we do still have the overall standings to consider. There are a lot of winners today, not just from our individual games, but in the overall. Before we do that, I want to take a look back at the game. Live this one more time with me, Mellowcrit, because it was a game. It was
it was certainly one of the games that has ever existed.
It is. Yeah, I don't think that we can say that we've seen a whole lot of other games like this on a professional level.
No, and I think it all really started with the juice that we got on that contest there from Deadass. And even though it came through, Deadass wasn't able to hold on to their game. And that's just how it goes sometimes. And actually, this was potentially the engagement that lost it all for them. They are able to siege this team really effectively, but there was a third party waiting in the wings. And in fact, that knock there could have actually been the nail in the coffin ultimately. So
parties that are arriving just as you start the fight, just as you get an edge, feel really unlucky, but we saw it happen to so many teams. The pace of the game ultra accelerated in our final match, and there was a reason why. We had some great competition today that pushed everyone to the limits, to the point where they had nothing left but to go all out and rely on the mechanics that have brought so many of our squads here. We don't talk about this enough, but especially in Challenger Circuit, the gatekeep into the finals is so often your mechanical ability, and this is where I think a lot of players lean back on that, especially in game number 6, and say, well, it got us this far, let's see how much further it can go.
Yeah, they really pushed it to the absolute limit here. Team Intel, 21 points. Void actually matching them in kills with 16, and Enigma Gaming, relatively quiet, for a large chunk of the tournament does go out with a second place finish to end things off. Not too shabby for them, but it was, I believe, Pride who played spoiler on to the what was almost the dead ass or daylight robbery. Man, that was unbelievable to almost witness. But a couple teams still scrapped together some points right at the end that are going to mean quite a bit for them as we head into the following year and into the final Challenger Circuit.
LTC. Yeah, I'll connect you with Pride's PayPal account. Just DM me after. Man. It was a game that I'm sure had LTC sweating as 0 points on the day. But to transition that to a little bit of a happier note for them, let's take a look at the overall leaderboards, where LTC still reigns supreme.
Yeah, and by a pretty decent margin as well. Again, not the 17 points that we saw at the end, but still holding out in front of Deadass. And I think Deadass understood that they didn't need... They couldn't just kind of hole up and hope for a top 5 finish. They needed to pick up a couple of kills, and I don't think they were positioned well enough to win the game. And of course, playing out of a POI specifically for the contest means that their macro might not have been on point. So it is what it is in the end. And outside of the top 3 by 1 point is Ranch on Spaghetti, but you have to commend that team as well because they showed miles of improvement here. You said it throughout the broadcast, but it can't be overstated how much better they look today than they did in the semis.
Yeah, even from last week, I'm going to say it again. You guys have been here the whole time. You're going to hear me once more. From 20th last week to 4th this week. Sky's the limit for Ranch on Spaghetti if they continue accelerating like this. I love that we've got the stats ready for them as well, but we have so many teams to celebrate because if we can bring it back to the overall leaderboards, what I think is the best way to end this is with how much these teams have achieved. They, along with so many others that have managed to make it into the Challenger Circuit Finals this year, absolutely deserve our respect for pushing themselves to achieve their dreams and to make it to Pro League. We send LTC Esports forward with a guaranteed seeding into the Pro League qualifiers, but Deadass, though this was their first performance in the finals, is almost sure to join them. I say the same of Demigods, and with our squads that have been more consistent, with those teams whose first time it is, you've still got that opportunity next time to lock your own spot, and whether it be with an incredible performance or whether it be with a first place finish. Mello?
Dude, honestly, like, you have to give credit where credit's due, and these teams, for those of you who aren't aware, though, I imagine many of you are, it is an absolute just trial of the mind to get this far into this tournament from a wide open bracket where anyone can come in, and we've seen some very terrifying players come through this. I mean, even just in this lobby alone, we have people that have played Pro League. We have people that are massive content creators that are known for their mechanics and known for their raw talent. So to make it this far throughout all the trials and tribulations of that massive bracket to get here, again, massively commendable effort and well-deserved here. Again, seeing the top 10 kill leaderboard. LTC, you see them 3 times up here. Rightfully so. Great job by that squad.
Yeah, this was a good day to finish it out on as well. LTC lighting it up. We saw our kill leaders previously, and now you can take a look at the damage from today. Not Daniel really standing out, not just in this, but specifically with their game number 5. It was Not Daniel who, on that crypto, made the push possible to take the game away from AMV. Beautiful games from LTC, and a great way to clutch it back after being denied the victory in last week's Challenger Circuit number 2. We now get to send them forward alongside GOW and Bad Boys as teams that we will absolutely be seeing in the preseason qualifiers for split number 2. And, well, Mello, that just about does it for us. This is our last Challenger Circuit broadcast of 2022. I got a lot of thank yous I want to say, so I'm going to hand it to you first before I monologue us out of here.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely got to thank Spark Series, got to thank TorchProd, the amazing team that is helping to put this thing on. So much work being done behind the scenes y'all wouldn't believe. So make sure you guys are following them on Twitter, by the way. Both those accounts got Twitters, TorchProd, Spark Series, and yeah, just incredible work that goes on to make this happen. Dia, I'm sure, of course, you're going to get to our observers and producers as well, because this doesn't happen without them.
Yeah, we've done a great job, TorchProd and Spark Series, of linking all of our associated staff's Twitters on our respective tweets. So once you find those out, I mean, go support our staff in any way possible. I want to give a big shout out to all the people who run the technical aspects of this production, but also to those that make it possible in other ways. For you guys at home who tune in, and to our players, of course, who give us these incredible games to cast over. It has been an amazing 2022 with all of you. One last big thanks, of course, goes to all the people whose loved ones and support make doing things like this, playing games, and getting hype possible. Mello, that's it for our closing thoughts of 2022. So I'm going to wish you and everyone at home a very happy holidays, a happy new year. And we will see you again on January 9th for our Challenger Circuit number 4 broadcast to close out split number 1. We'll see you guys then.